Hello everyone, I'm very glad that you listened to my story. Please give me a follow and like the video if you enjoyed it. Feel free to comment and provide feedback so I can improve the sound quality. Yes, I will now continue the unfinished story. Chapter 33. Weirdo, 1. The three of them remained silent throughout the journey. Zhang Yuejin had no interest in talking to Chen Fei, and naturally, Chen Fei wouldn't approach her either. Should I just leave the medical center? A sudden thought popped up in Chen Fei's mind, but he quickly dismissed it. Chen Fei was now marked by the Zhang family, and he couldn't just leave without paying the termination fee. Unless he left Pingying County, breaking ties with the Zhang family would only cause more trouble in the future. Alternatively, he could change his identity and continue living in Pingying County, relying on his alchemy skills to support himself. However, it would be difficult to acquire any secret martial arts manuals in the future. The damaged secret manuals sold in the black market were unreliable, to say the least. Chen Fei had hoped to obtain the Thunderous Sword Force and had bought more than a dozen manuals, but none of them had met even the most basic criteria. Chen Fei had been lucky to obtain the Immortal Way and Astonishment formula before, but luck wasn't something that could be relied on forever. As for leaving Pingying County, the outside was now filled with rebel armies, and many evil occurrences had taken place. The frequency of merchant caravans traveling to Pingying County had decreased significantly. Chen Fei hadn't made up his mind on where to go since he was unfamiliar with the outside world and lacked the strength to defend himself. Let's see what they want. Chen Fei glanced at Zhang Yuejin. He didn't know why the Zhang family had suddenly summoned him, and if it were too dangerous, he would have to consider his options carefully. In a short moment, the three of them arrived at the Zhang family mansion through a side door and entered the main hall, where many people had already gathered. Chen Fei stood at the back, while Zhang Yuejin stood in the middle, indicating Chen Fei's current status within the Zhang family. Everyone's here. Zhang Ting, the current head of the Zhang family, looked at the people present and spoke solemnly. I won't waste time with idle talk. We're here today for one thing only, to capture Sun Shu. Everyone was stunned to hear this. They had thought Sun Shu had already left Pingying County long ago, and they couldn't believe that the Zhang family had summoned so many people for this. Whoever can kill Sun Shu and bring back his corpse will be handsomely rewarded by the Zhang family. Zhang Ting made a promise that was sure to appeal to everyone. With so many people watching, the Zhang family had to provide a worthwhile reward. After 15 minutes, the crowd dispersed, and Chen Fei and the others went to Zhang Xinan's courtyard. As my father said, if any of you can kill Sun Shu, the Zhang family won't let you down. Zhang Xinan sipped his tea lightly. But Sun Shu has already left Pingying County, hasn't he? Zheng Difang asked, puzzled. There are some things that cannot be discussed in detail, please forgive me, Elder Zheng. I understand. Zheng Difang quickly waved his hand. If Sun Shu dares to show his face, I can kill him by myself. Zhang Yuejin narrowed her eyes, intent on achieving this goal. Her position within the Zhang family was still precarious, and if she could kill Sun Shu and win everyone's approval, her position would be much more stable. But Sun Shu is now a rat crossing the street, how would he dare to show himself? Zhang Xinan shook her head. Although Sun Shu had decent strength in the bone-tempering realm, he could still be dealt with by the Zhang family. The problem was that they couldn't find him, and he was hiding in the shadows. Just yesterday, the Zhang family had actually lost 2 direct descendants. Otherwise, they wouldn't be so angry. Chen Fei didn't say a word and just stood to the side. Although this matter was quite tempting, Chen Fei's current outward strength didn't seem like he could kill Sun Shu. In the end, even if Chen Fei tried, it was probably just him serving as a sacrifice for someone else. After a moment, the group left Zhang Xinan's courtyard. On the way, Zheng Difang patted Chen Fei's shoulder. He knew that last time, the Zhang family hadn't given Qianfei the recipe for the light spirit pill. This matter was somewhat unfair, but even though Zheng Difang was an old alchemist, he couldn't change the Zhang family's decision. In the end, as long as someone wasn't a direct descendant of the Zhang family, they were just servants in their eyes. Qianfei smiled and bid farewell. The Zhang family's bounty offer soon spread throughout Pingying County. The Zhang family had previously offered a bounty for Sun Shu, but it had been ineffective. However, this time, the Zhang family was serious. The bounty was very high, and they offered other benefits as well. If someone outside the Zhang family found Sun Shu, not only would they receive money, but they could also directly enter the Zhang family's store, and their personal safety would be guaranteed. For ordinary people, this temptation undoubtedly became much stronger. The North City refugee camp. Compared to other places, the sanitation here was poor, and even the order seemed somewhat chaotic. From time to time, Joshi glanced at a figure under the courtyard wall. He didn't know when this person had arrived nearby. They never saw him go out to work or eat, as if he was always still and unmoving. However, such strange people were still common in the refugee camp. Joshi didn't pay much attention to it normally, but since the Zhang family's bounty had been issued, Joshi's thoughts had changed. Perhaps, this person was the one the Zhang family was looking for. Joshi couldn't help but think this, but he had no way to prove it. They couldn't just assume someone was Sun Shu just because they looked strange. As night fell, Joshi gnawed on a hard piece of bread so old it had turned black, and the image of the person he had seen during the day inexplicably appeared in his mind. Joshi thought for a moment and found Jolie. The two had grown up together. Should we report that person to the Zhang family? Jolie was surprised when he heard Joshi's idea. I asked around, and that person is really strange. He doesn't normally go out to work and only occasionally goes out. Unless he's someone who has money. But if he does, then why would he stay here with us? Joshi whispered. Jolie frowned, thinking that Joshi's words made some sense. Of course, the most important thing was that the Zhang family's bounty was really tempting. As long as they provided useful information, they could receive a substantial bounty and even work in the Zhang family's store. Even if it were just for show, the Zhang family would probably arrange a decent job for them. So, should we try it out? Of course, we should. Let's go together. Joshi's face lit up with a bright smile. He knew that his brother was working as a handyman at the clinic, and although they had food and shelter, it was still not enough to support their entire family. If that strange man turned out to be Sun Shu, they could finally leave the refugee camp and live a normal life. Let's go. Jolie nodded in agreement and was about to pull Joshi out the door when he noticed Joshi stiffen and stare intently behind him. Alarmed, Jolie turned around to see a figure standing there, their eyes bloodshot as they looked at the two brothers. I heard you mention Zhang's family. It seems like it concerns me, Sun Shu said with a grin, revealing teeth stained with some unknown substance. This place is already occupied. If you need a place to stay, go somewhere else, Jolie said nervously, swallowing hard. Don't be afraid. It won't hurt. I just need one strike. Sun Shu ignored Jolie's plea and, in a flash, appeared before him, pressing his hands on Jolie's head. Chapter 34. Pursuit. Jolie's eyes widened in horror. Just as he was about to struggle, a sharp pain came from his neck. The next moment, everything before his eyes turned pitch black. Seeing Jolie collapse on the ground, Joshi screamed in fright. However, he'd only just started screaming when he found his mouth covered by a hand, and he couldn't make any sound. It was you who was spying on me during the day, right? Sun Shu looked down at Joshi, one hand covering his mouth, the other pinching Joshi's neck, and pulled him closer. Joshi's eyes filled with tears instantly, and he kicked hard, but he couldn't break free. He could only watch as Sun Shu's face got closer and closer to his. There are consequences for every choice you make, do you understand? He. Sun Shu suddenly laughed inexplicably, and his hand around Joshi's neck tightened. Joshi's eyes bulged out involuntarily, and the next moment, a bloody mist filled the entire dilapidated courtyard. Consequences, Zhang family. Sun Shu muttered to himself, loosening his grip on Joshi's neck, and his body fell to the ground. Outside the courtyard wall, a small figure was looking through a hole in the wall, witnessing everything that had happened before its eyes. Zhao Qi tightly covered his mouth, not daring to make a sound. Every day, Zhao Qi would look through this hole and watch what was happening next door. Sometimes the courtyard was empty, but Zhao Qi could still watch with great interest. But today, Zhao Qi regretted doing so. He had witnessed a murder. Zhao Qi's teeth were chattering, but he didn't dare to make any sound. He knew that if he made a sound, the killer would come and kill him too. Zhao Qi's eyes were fixed on Sun Shu as he left the courtyard. Zhao Qi breathed a sigh of relief, loosening his grip on his mouth. He looked up and saw a pair of eyes staring back at him through the hole. Zhao Qi screamed in terror and scrambled backward. Oh, so there's a little rat hiding here too. At the North City Medical Hall, inside the pill room, Chen Fei's hand movements kept changing, and a fragrance of medicine spread from the pill furnace. Boom! There was a muffled sound, and the whole pill furnace shook. The fragrance of the medicine instantly turned into a burnt smell. Chen Fei furrowed his brows slightly as he opened the lid of the furnace and looked at the charred residue inside. I wonder which herb caused this blockage, he muttered to himself as he cleaned the furnace and recalled the details of his previous alchemy process. Suddenly, he heard some commotion outside. As he walked out, Lu Jun approached him and greeted him, "Steward Chen. What's going on?" Chen Fei asked. "The family of one of our servants was killed, and he is asking if the medical hall could advance some of his wages," Lu Jun explained, pointing to a young and malnourished-looking man. Chen Fei glanced at the man and took out a few silver pieces. "Give this to him on my tab," he said before turning away. He knew that this was probably the most he could do to help the man, and giving him more money might not even ensure his survival. Back in the alchemy room, Chen Fei continued his research on the light spirit pill. After an hour, he massaged his temples and sighed, feeling frustrated at the lack of progress. However, he was also somewhat enjoying the challenge of reverse engineering the pill from its finished form back to the herbs that composed it. Chen Fei then picked up his sword and began practicing his swordsmanship, which he often did when he was not cultivating his inner energy or doing alchemy. This grueling schedule did not burn him out but rather energized him. Days passed by, and the situation outside of Pingying County became increasingly unstable. The Imperial Army, tasked with suppressing the rebel forces, suffered a defeat and was gradually retreating. The rebels gained momentum and even took control of several other towns. In Pingying County, another member of the Zhang family was killed. However, the family's control over Sun Shu's movements became more precise. There was even one instance where they had a physical altercation, but Sun Shu managed to escape. Chen Fei has integrated his swordsmanship into the fourth set. Cultivation method, Fire Sword, Perfect 7124/10,000. Compared to the Clear Mountain Sword, the Fire Sword was at least 70% more powerful now. With this current swordsmanship, Chen Fei could now compete with Jian Liang. If the Fire Sword were elevated to grand completion, Chen Fei would be able to defeat Jian Liang. With just one set of swordsmanship, Chen Fei could fight against those with higher cultivation levels. This just shows how outstanding this swordsmanship is. Compared to the inheritance of the noble families in Pingying County, Chen Fei's swordsmanship was by no means inferior. Chen Fei was chatting with a physician about the properties of certain medicinal herbs in the main hall of the medical clinic. He has had no progress in his cultivation of the light spirit pill and has been stuck in one spot for quite some time. Discussing the properties of herbs with the physician sometimes gave Chen Fei more ideas. As they were having a good conversation, Zhang Yuezhen suddenly appeared in the clinic. "All the guards, follow me. Chen Fei, you too." Zhang Yuezhen shouted, seeing Chen Fei in the main hall. After a moment's thought, she called him along. His cultivation level was higher than the other physicians, so he was of some assistance. Most of the guards didn't understand what was happening, but they all followed. Chen Fei ran in the middle and rear of the group. In a moment, they had left Pingying County and arrived in a mountainous forest. A person was standing there, pacing anxiously. Seeing Zhang Yuezhen, he hurried over to greet her. "Is Sun Shu still over there?" Zhang Yuezhen asked nervously. "He's still there, and he's injured, but we need to move quickly, or others might come soon." Zhang Qiang shook the money bag that Zhang Yuezhen handed him and laughed. "He's just one person, and I owe you a favor this time. I'll wait for your good news." Zhang Qiang bowed and said. Zhang Yuezhen laughed loudly and rushed ahead. The guards behind them realized that they had found Sun Shu. Zhang Yuezhen was trying to win the honor of her family by getting rid of the Zhang family's recent troubles. Chapter 35. Rude. The group moved through the dense forest, and Zhang Yuezhen's face was filled with excitement as she looked at the occasional bloodstains on the ground. The Zhang family harbored a deep hatred towards Sun Shu, and this was her chance to kill him. In her position as the steward of the medical center, if she succeeded, her position would be secure, and no one would dare to question her. They came across a dilapidated temple in front of them, a common sight around the area. It had not completely collapsed as it served as a temporary lodging for passing caravans. "Everyone, take the detoxification pills," Zhang Yuezhen ordered, and the guards quickly took out the pills. Chen Fei, who was standing at the back, also swallowed a detoxification pill. "If anyone kills Sun Shu, I will give them half of the Zhang family's reward, and their salary will be tripled from now on," Zhang Yuezhen announced to the guards. She then chose 3 guards to go in first, cautioning them to be careful, although Sun Shu was already injured. The rest of the guards were on edge, hoping to be selected next, as the amount of money promised was too tempting to resist. Chen Fei stood at the back and watched as the 3 guards kicked open the door of the temple and rushed in. In a matter of moments, the sound of fighting and shouting could be heard from inside. "He's really here. You 5, go in." Zhang Yuezhen ordered the next set of guards, and they eagerly rushed into the temple. It seemed that the first 3 guards had successfully engaged Sun Shu, and with the next group's help, they might be able to kill him. The other guards were impatient to be chosen, fearing that if they were too slow, they would miss their chance to collect the reward. Zhang Yuezhen stared fixedly at the entrance of the dilapidated temple, cautious of any possible ambush inside. It seemed that Sun Shu was really in trouble, as even the collective effort of the guards couldn't resolve the situation. "Shall we go in too, Steward Zhang?" The 2 remaining guards came closer to Zhang Yuezhen, sounding anxious. It was obvious that they wanted a piece of the action too. They couldn't afford to be left behind and only find Sun Shu's corpse inside. The sounds of shouting and clashing weapons continued to emanate from the temple, indicating that the battle inside had reached its climax. Chen Fei kept his eyes fixed on the temple, feeling a sudden coldness on his wrist. He looked down to see the eerie mark that had been placed there, now becoming more active than usual. Chen Fei's pupils contracted in fear. The gangrene had been relatively quiet, and with his improving cultivation, it had been gradually diminishing. How had it become like this? "You all go in." Zhang Yuezhen commanded the last 2 guards, who eagerly rushed into the temple. "You too." Zhang Yuezhen turned to Chen Fei. "Don't say I didn't give you a chance. It should be ending soon. Maybe you'll have a chance to land the final blow." "The situation inside isn't right," Chen Fei said, taking a step back. He hadn't felt anything before, but the strange behavior of the bone ulcer had prompted him to listen more carefully to the sounds inside. What he found was alarming. Despite the intense fighting, many of the voices inside were repeating themselves. While one might overlook this under the pressure of combat, it was definitely odd if one paid close attention. I asked you to do something. I'm not asking for your opinions. Now, go inside immediately, don't make me take action. Zhang Yuezhen yelled, glaring at Chen Fei. Either go in obediently or I'll throw you in. I'm in charge of this medical clinic, she added. There are problems inside, please listen carefully. Chen Fei raised his voice, looking at Zhang Yuezhen. Shut up. Zhang Yuezhen roared, unsheathing half of her long sword and pressing it towards Chen Fei, warning him. This is the last time. Will you go in or not? I am an alchemist of the medical clinic. I don't need to be responsible for frontal combat. You don't have the right to order me. Chen Fei retorted. Just the simple act of condoning Sun Shu's escape can justify killing you now, and nothing will happen to me. Since talking to you nicely didn't work, don't blame me for being rude. Zhang Yuezhen sneered, then quickly came to Chen Fei, grabbing his collar. In the North City Medical Center, Zhang Yuezhen didn't allow anyone to go against her word. She demanded absolute obedience. Now, with the impending assassination of Sun Shu, she didn't mind reminding Chen Fei once again who the true leader of the clinic was. Fuck you. Chen Fei shouted, unsheathing his sword and thrusting it toward Zhang Yuezhen. Seeing Chen Fei's action, Zhang Yuezhen couldn't help but smile triumphantly. He dared to use a sword against her. She just wanted to teach him a lesson earlier. Now, even if she crippled Chen Fei, no one would say anything. He was a mere skin-toughening realm cultivator, he simply didn't know the gravity of the situation. Thinking of this, Zhang Yuezhen's capture was about to accelerate. But suddenly, she realized that the sword in Chen Fei's hand had disappeared, leaving only a flash of light in her sight. Something's not right. Zhang Yuezhen's heart jolted, about to dodge sideways. But suddenly, she felt a sharp pain in her chest and lost all sensation there. Zhang Yuezhen was incredulous, looking down at the wound that penetrated her chest, blood gushing out uncontrollably. She instinctively covered the wound but couldn't stop the blood from flowing. She looked up at Chen Fei with eyes full of disbelief. How could a skin-toughening realm cultivator have such swordsmanship that even she couldn't react in time? Chen Fei didn't look at Zhang Yuezhen. Instead, he looked in the direction of the ruined temple. As Chen Fei and Zhang Yuezhen fought, the previously lively ruined temple suddenly quieted down. Vaguely, Chen Fei saw a crimson gaze projecting from the ruined temple, staring straight at him. There's something evil. Chen Fei kicked Zhang Yuezhen in the abdomen, sending her flying toward the ruined temple. No, don't. Zhang Yuezhen seemed to have realized that something was wrong at this point, struggling and shouting. But she was completely swallowed by the door of the ruined temple. Chen Fei stomped his feet, quickly moving away from the ruined temple, his heart beating fiercely. It wasn't because he was nervous about killing Zhang Yuezhen but because he was worried about being able to escape from the evil thing inside. Chapter 36. Cycle. How did Sun Shu become an evil thing? He appeared in the city many times before and was even blocked by the Zhang family once. Didn't the county government have magical items to suppress these evil beings? Chen Fei's mind kept turning, but unfortunately, no one could give him the answer to these questions. Is Sun Shu still over there? He is, and he's really injured, but we need to finish this quickly, or other people will come soon after hearing the news. It's just Sun Shu, I owe you a favor this time. I'll wait for your good news. Suddenly, a faint voice came from the front, and Chen Fei felt something was off. The conversation sounded familiar. As Chen Fei approached, he saw the group of people in the distance, and his scalp suddenly went numb. What the fuck? In Chen Fei's eyes, Zhang Qiang, Zhang Yuezhen, and the others were now in conversation, with a line of guards following behind Zhang Yuezhen. Chen Fei was at the back of the group and he saw himself. Sun Shu, he's here, kill him. Zhang Yuezhen suddenly looked toward Chen Fei and shouted loudly, her expression extremely excited. Not only Zhang Yuezhen but those guards and even Zhang Qiang had red eyes and looked at Chen Fei fiercely. Chen Fei's figure flashed, and he ran past the group of people that he didn't know if they were human or ghosts. Sun Shu, you can't run, Chen Fei. Zhang Yuezhen's voice was fading away, and her shout for Sun Shu turned into Chen Fei's name. Chen Fei instinctively turned around, and the people who were just fine were now covered in blood. Zhang Yuezhen had a sword wound on her chest, and her left arm was missing. She was now crazily chasing after Chen Fei, and her cold gaze was chilling. Swift. Chen Fei's body movement secret technique was suddenly activated, and his speed increased. The cold aura that had been approaching him was thrown off in an instant. Chen Fei, it hurts, you're insulting me. I'll kill you, kill you. The crazy, illogical voice came from behind, and Chen Fei didn't look back, running towards the direction of Pingying County as fast as he could. Chen Fei knew he couldn't handle these anomalies, so he had to go back to Pingying County to save his life. Fortunately, Chen Fei's body movement technique was quite impressive, especially when he was running at full speed, surpassing the bone-tempering realm and even the evil entities. Just a moment later, Chen Fei saw the city wall of Pingying County in front of him, and the cold aura behind him had disappeared. I finally made it back. Entering the city wall, a warm feeling appeared on Chen Fei's body, and he couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. I have to go to the Zhang family, this matter is quite serious. Chen Fei took a breath and thought about what had happened. Zhang's family would have a headache with this matter. If it wasn't for the fact that everyone saw him leave with them in the medical hall, Chen Fei would have wanted to avoid this matter. But there were too many witnesses, and denying it would only raise more suspicions. Chen Fei found an empty alleyway, patted his chest with his palm, and spat out a mouthful of blood. Then he slammed into the ground, bruising his face. This should do. Chen Fei stood up and bruised his mouth a little. It would look suspicious if he showed up without any injuries. After a quarter of an hour, Chen Fei arrived at the Zhang family's house and met with Zhang Xinan. What did you say? Everyone is dead. Zhang Xinan stood up when he heard Chen Fei's words. Sun Shu may have turned into an evil entity. Chen Fei explained most of what had happened, except for his conflict with Zhang Yuezhen. Zhang Xinan paced back and forth, frowning. The loss of those guards was not significant for the Zhang family, but it was difficult to accept the death of someone like Zhang Yuezhen, who was in the bone-tempering realm. This was especially so if Sun Shu had really turned into an evil entity. The difficulty of resolving this matter would increase significantly. Follow me. Zhang Xinan said and then walked forward, with Chen Fei following behind. After a while, the two arrived at Zhang Ting's study. Chen Fei recounted what had happened, and Zhang Ting was furious, but he did not direct his anger toward Chen Fei. Chen Fei was a pill refiner with a cultivation level in the skin toughening realm, and he was lucky enough to have survived. It was impossible to blame him for the responsibility of this incident. Moreover, a pill refiner was still an important asset to the Zhang family's medical center. Zhang Yuezhen, on the other hand, had taken the guards from the North City Medical Center to search for Sun Shu in order to claim credit, which had resulted in her death. This could also alarm Sun Shu's side. In Zhang Ting's opinion, Zhang Yuezhen's death was just. You have done well. Go down and receive your reward. Zhang Ting looked at Chen Fei, waved his hand, and let him leave. He then looked at Zhang Xinan and said, summon the elders. Yes. Zhang Xinan nodded and took Chen Fei out. What reward do you want? Zhang Xinan said in a low voice, you did well, and we always reward those who do well. A body technique manual. Chen Fei thought for a moment. The recipe for the light spirit pill was out of the question, and the internal energy cultivation method was the Zhang family's heritage, which was impossible to obtain. Chen Fei had already acquired a sword technique from them during his last reward, but he felt that he could still improve his body technique. If it weren't for Chen Fei's excellent agility, he would have died this time from encountering the evil entity. Therefore, it was prudent to be as strong as possible. Okay. Jiang Xinan glanced at Chen Fei, thinking that he was frightened by the incident, and nodded in agreement. Can I choose like last time? Chen Fei asked. Fine. Jiang Xinan agreed, albeit somewhat impatiently. She called her personal maid, Dan Xiang, to bring her token to retrieve the manuals. Meanwhile, Jiang Xinan went to find the elders of the Jiang family one by one. After some time in Jiang Xinan's courtyard. Here are 3 body technique manuals. Eldest Miss says you have a quarter of an hour to choose. Dan Xiang looked at Chen Fei disdainfully. She couldn't understand how Chen Fei survived when Zhang Yuezhen had died. A quarter of an hour. Chen Fei frowned, as it was not enough time to record the manuals. Chen Fei looked at Dan Xiang's expression and understood, so he took out 5 taels of silver from his pocket and handed them to her. What are you doing? Dan Xiang glared at him, wanting to throw the silver away. But feeling the weight of the silver, she hesitated. As Jiang Xinan's maid, Dan Xiang's salary was not high, and these 5 taels of silver would take her a month or 2 to save up. Just 3/4 of an hour, please be lenient. Chen Fei took out another 10 taels of silver and handed them to Dan Xiang, who fell silent and accepted the silver. Chen Fei smiled and quickly grabbed the manuals. Half an hour later, Chen Fei left the Zhang family. Techniques: 1 leaf crossing, unfamiliar; ascending cloud steps, unfamiliar; 3-fold wind stride, unfamiliar. Chen Fei was excited as he read the records of these agility manuals. Compared to the ones he bought in the black market, these were undoubtedly more advanced. Integrating them into his current abilities would take him to a whole new level. Although today was dangerous, Chen Fei had gained a lot. Chapter 37. Situation. In his own pill room, Chen Fei consumed a light spirit pill and sat cross-legged, circulating the suspending force. After a full hour, Chen Fei opened his eyes and exhaled a breath of stale air. Chen Fei had yet to fully deduce the formula for the light spirit pill, as he was stuck on the final step and could only grind it out slowly over time. According to Chen Fei's estimation, the formula for the light spirit pill could probably be deduced in another month. Although he had not received the formula for the light spirit pill, it did not stop Chen Fei from using the pill to cultivate. Due to the sale of the Qi rejuvenation pill in the black market, Chen Fei didn't make huge sums of money, but he did have small sums trickling through. A light spirit pill costing 15 taels of silver didn't cause Chen Fei any pressure when he consumed it. With the perfect suspending force combined with the light spirit pill, according to the feedback given by the interface, Chen Fei estimated that it would take nearly a year to advance his cultivation to the bone-tempering realm. Compared to the previous year, the time required had decreased significantly. If Chen Fei still wanted to continue to compress the time he needed to cultivate to the bone-tempering realm, he would either have to obtain a high-level inner strength cultivation technique or consume the eternal floating pill. High-level inner strength techniques were kept by the various aristocratic families in Pingying County. Usually, only direct descendants could obtain them. Even if Chen Fei married into an aristocratic family, the possibility of obtaining inner strength techniques was very low. Thus, in Pingying County, there was a high chance that Chen Fei would not have the chance to obtain a stronger inner strength cultivation technique. He could only try his luck in the black market and obtain those cultivation techniques that could be simplified. As for the eternal floating pill, it was actually a medicinal pill for marrow-tempering realm martial artists to consume. The light spirit pill that Chen Fei currently consumed was usually only bought for cultivation by bone-tempering realm martial artists. As a result, Chen Fei was actually already taking medicinal pills that crossed realms. Fortunately, the burden of the light spirit pill on a martial artist's body was not great. One pill a day was completely within Qianfei's tolerance range. Qianfei could probably consume the eternal floating pill now. Unfortunately, there were almost no eternal floating pills in Pingyang County. Even if they were available, they would be monopolized by the disciples of the various aristocratic families. Qianfei had never seen the eternal floating pill in any of the medicine stores. Even if it appeared once or twice in the black market, it would be quickly bought out, and Qianfei wouldn't even have the chance to make a move. Qianfei stood up and went to the courtyard, brandishing his long sword. Traces of sword qi surrounded the sword. As the sword light flickered, it was as if a flame had risen in the courtyard. A moment later, Qianfei withdrew his move. A straight ravine appeared on the ground, caused by the sword qi just now. Cultivation technique, fire sword, great completion. It had been 2 days since he encountered the evil entity outside the city. Qianfei had successfully cultivated the fire sword to great completion. What made Qianfei somewhat happy was that the perfection of the fire sword had actually brought about the growth of Immortal Wei's power. Logically speaking, Immortal Wei had already reached great completion, and its power was already fixed. Later on, Qianfei realized that it was his own growth that had opened up some of the limitations of Immortal Wei. After all, his cultivation was only at the body tempering realm, and his sword principle realm was relatively ordinary. No matter how powerful Immortal Wei was, it could only be displayed according to one's current conditions. From this, one could see the immense power of the Cloud Sword sect, where one move in a set of sword techniques surpassed all the other sword techniques Qianfei had worked hard to combine. This also stimulated his admiration for the Cloud Sword sect, which is truly a behemoth. 2 days ago, the Zhang family made a big move. Knowing that Sun Shu had become an evil existence and that all his hatred was directed at the Zhang family was restless. That day, the Zhang family gathered all their men, even those from the Yamen, and rushed towards the forest outside the city. Whether the two sides met in the end, no one knew, and everything was kept secret. Qianfei did not participate in this matter anymore. In the eyes of the public, Qianfei was just a pill-refining alchemist in the skin-toughening realm. If it weren't for Zhang Yuezhen that day, Qianfei would not have been involved in the fight. As night fell, Qianfei dressed up and appeared in the dark market. The situation in the south has been somewhat unfavorable lately. You should be careful. In the small hut, the smell of herbs filled the air. Qi Defeng looked at Qianfei and smiled. Will the rebel army come to Pingyang County? Qianfei asked in surprise. Since the imperial army suffered a major defeat, various rumors have been circulating in the county recently. Some say that the army will regroup and fight the rebel army to the death. Others say that the rebel army has surrounded the imperial army and is gradually killing them. I don't know yet, but the imperial army is now retreating towards Pingyang County, and it is still unclear where they will eventually station. Are the rebels chasing after them? Qianfei asked. Not at the moment, Qi Defeng shook his head and said, those rebels have already occupied many cities and territories. They are currently trying to stabilize their rule and have no intention of continuing the pursuit. Qianfei breathed a sigh of relief. The battlefield was the most dangerous place for someone like him with a small build. Whether he could survive in such an environment was a question. Is there a way to get to the Cloud Sword sect? Qianfei suddenly asked after thinking for a moment. If one were to talk about where it was relatively safe now, apart from the large rear area of the court, it would probably be within the range of these top-notch sects. From skin refinement to organ refinement, commonly known as the 5 realms of body refinement. Above body refinement, there were even more advanced realms of cultivation. That was the true beginning of transcending the physical body. In the Cloud Sword sect, there were such top-notch powerhouses. And it was precisely because of the existence of such powerhouses that the surroundings of the Cloud Sword sect appeared relatively peaceful. There were rumors that there were wars raging throughout the court, and it was unknown where the problem lay. The only thing Chen Fei could think of at the time was to go to such top-notch sections. As long as he raised his cultivation to a higher level, even if something happened later, he would have the ability to deal with it? No. The world outside was in chaos, with strange and mysterious things happening. It was difficult and dangerous to travel such a long distance. Qi Defeng shook his head and said, "It wasn't that time yet." Chen Fei nodded with a slight furrow of his brow and began to count that day's medicinal herbs. After a moment, Chen Fei handed a herb to Qi Defeng, and Qi Defeng handed another herb back to Chen Fei from behind with an expressionless face. Chen Fei's eye twitched slightly. The game of distinguishing between true and false had not yet ended. The key was that Qi Defeng now had no hint of shame, just a look of "Oh, you found out, great. By the way, if I encounter any evil entities, do you have any good ideas for survival?" Before leaving, Chen Fei suddenly asked. Unless it were absolutely necessary, Chen Fei would not leave Pingying County alone. But if there really was such a day, on the journey, he was not afraid of anything else, only afraid of encountering an unstoppable strange phenomenon, which would really be troublesome. "Oh? Have you encountered something evil lately?" Qi Defeng looked Chen Fei up and down a few times, but he didn't seem to be missing any limbs. "I went out of the city a few times and encountered some." "How did you deal with it?" Qi Defeng asked curiously. "I used internal energy to wear one down, and I couldn't wear down the other, so I just ran away." Chen Fei remembered that time with Sun Shu. It was too dangerous, luckily he ran fast enough. Chapter 38. Fleeing like the wind. "Ah, the method is right," nodded Qi Defeng. "When facing an evil entity, you either need deep cultivation to endure it or run. If you can't escape, there is no other way." "Is it true that the evil entity can cause hallucinations?" suddenly asked Chen Fei. "Have you encountered this level of the evil entity?" Qi Defeng looked at Chen Fei with some surprise. "I'm not sure," Chen Fei shook his head. "The evil entity indeed varies in strength and severity. The kind that causes hallucinations is the most troublesome." After thinking for a moment, Qi Defeng ran to another room and returned shortly after with a secret manual in his hand, which he handed to Chen Fei. Chen Fei looked at Qi Defeng with confusion. "Clear Heart Formula. From the Cloud Sword Sect." "Not all techniques are from Cloud Sword Sect," Qi Defeng laughed and cursed, "I don't know which sect it's from. It's not helpful for cultivation and can't be used to harm enemies. It can only calm the mind and help beginners remain level-headed in emergencies. Can it help one break free from the hallucinations caused by the evil entity?" "Only by cultivating to a high level," Qi Defeng nodded, "but mastering Clear Heart Formula is extremely difficult, and even if you manage to master it, the difficulty of cultivation is immense. You must be mentally prepared." Chen Fei was overjoyed to receive the secret manual. Finally, he had another way to escape from the evil entities. "What about the disciples of Cloud Sword Sect? How do they avoid having hallucinations?" Chen Fei remained curious about the section. "Thunderous Sword Force. This technique is imbued with the power of thunder, making it immune to the effects of the evil entity. Cloud Sword Sect has many similar techniques," shrugged Qi Defeng. Chen Fei grinned. It was no wonder that top sects had comprehensive systems of techniques, making it unnecessary to think so much. It was only cultivators like him who had to scramble for whatever they could get. Surprisingly, Qi Defeng didn't charge an exorbitant price for Clear Heart Formula. Perhaps he realized that few would be willing to purchase such a supplementary manual, or maybe he was simply being kind. For most warriors, practicing internal energy and techniques was already arduous enough. Learning a technique that was difficult to master and couldn't directly harm enemies would be unappealing. Even without the interface, Chen Fei still wouldn't have wanted it. It wasn't due to a lack of effort but rather his limited talent, time, and energy. Simplifying Clear Heart Formula, simplification was successful. Clear Heart Formula Rightward Arrow Cold Water Hair Wash. Chen Fei blinked. So this was a way to reduce brain heat through physical means. Several days had passed since then, and apart from his daily internal energy practice, Chen Fei had spent most of his time integrating new footwork techniques. He wasn't able to deduce the formula for the light spirit pill yet, so for now, the most important thing was his speed. In the recent incidents he had encountered, if Chen Fei hadn't been fast enough, he would have been defeated. Therefore, in addition to cultivating his internal energy, footwork was his top priority. As new techniques were continually integrated, Chen Fei could feel himself getting faster and faster. Even his normal speed was gradually approaching his previous sprinting state. Chen Fei had never seen a warrior who had reached the marrow tempering realm and wondered what kind of speed they would have. Based on his estimation, he was probably on par, if not a little slower. As for Clear Heart Formula, Chen Fei didn't neglect it. Besides the threat of the evil entities, he found that his state of mind had become much calmer since he started practicing it. Previously, due to his insufficient strength and various dangerous situations in the outside world, Chen Fei always lacked a sense of security. This lack of security manifested itself in his constant grinding for experience. He had no leisure time or entertainment and was always practicing various techniques. This tension made Chen Fei unconsciously anxious, but the exhaustion deep in his heart was also accumulating and uncontainable. However, after practicing Clear Heart Formula, Chen Fei was able to treat external crises and vigilance more calmly than before, no longer allowing them to constantly surround his mind. In simpler terms, Chen Fei could now face things with a relatively calm attitude. This change resulted in a relaxation of his body and mind, despite his continuous efforts to improve. His mindset was gradually changing. The North City Medical Hall continued to operate as usual, and the Zhang family had brought in some guards from other places. However, the position of managing the medicine hall was now vacant. They didn't ask Chen Fei to take up the position permanently but allowed him to temporarily take on the responsibilities until further arrangements were made. Chen Fei was in the pill refining room of the medicine hall refining the Qi rejuvenation pill. Recently, he had stopped refining vitality pills and started to showcase his skill in refining Qi rejuvenation pill instead. In order to maintain his relatively genius character, Chen Fei couldn't always be refining vitality pills. Upon discovering that Chen Fei was capable of refining the Qi rejuvenation pill, he could clearly feel a change in attitude from the Zhang family. Obviously, the Zhang family had shifted their focus from Chen Fei being just a slightly talented alchemist to an object of great interest. At this rate, perhaps in another decade or so, the Zhang family would willingly bestow upon Chen Fei the recipe for the light spirit pill. Suddenly, there was a commotion outside the pill room. Just as Chen Fei stepped out, Lu Jun ran up to him and exclaimed, "The army has entered the city. The army has entered the city." Chen Fei furrowed his brows. In the end, the army had arrived at Pingying County. However, it was unclear whether they intended to station themselves there or if they were merely passing through. That night, the most prosperous restaurant in Pingying County was aglow with light. Both the county officials and the various prominent families were gathered there, hosting a banquet for the army's generals. Chen Fei was also invited but only sat in the corner of the restaurant's first floor. As the wine flowed, the atmosphere in the restaurant became increasingly lively. Chen Fei watched the people around him but said nothing, nor did he attempt to strike up a conversation. He simply regarded himself as a transparent individual. It was only approaching midnight when the feast finally ended. The next day, the various prominent families began contributing supplies to the army, including medicinal herbs, elixirs, grains, meats, and a considerable amount of silver. At the same time, they began conscripting young men into the army to replenish their depleted numbers. Due to the army's arrival, the entire Pingying County was in a state of great commotion. As the deputy manager of the medical hall, Chen Fei was responsible for arranging the supply of various elixirs and was tasked with refining the qi rejuvenation pill. In private, Chen Fei heard some complaints from the Zhang family. Clearly, the level of their contributions had exceeded what they had voluntarily agreed to. However, with the military's power at play, the Zhang family had no choice but to comply. Through other channels, Chen Fei inquired about the cultivation methods of the soldiers. In the end, he was somewhat disappointed to find that most of them practiced extremely rudimentary techniques. Only the generals had more advanced cultivation methods, but they were unlikely to teach others their techniques. After all kinds of resources were filled into the army, on the fifth day, the troops stationed outside the city suddenly withdrew. This withdrawal left the people of Pingyang County somewhat puzzled. Shortly thereafter, news arrived that rebels had appeared 10 miles outside the county and were heading towards them in a frenzy. Chapter 39. Rebel Army Entering the City. Upon hearing this news, the people of Pingyang County were alarmed. The imperial court's army had abruptly fled, despite their earlier vow to engage the rebel army if they arrived. This was the reason why the prominent families of Pingyang County had contributed so many resources, to protect themselves from potential pillaging by the rebel army. After all, the imperial army tended to follow certain standards, whereas the rebels had no qualms about disregarding them. But now, the imperial army had fled, leaving the people of Pingyang County in a state of uncertainty. Although they could resist by closing the city gates, the duration of their defense was unknown. Moreover, there was no military presence in Pingyang County, only bailiffs and constables from the county government, with rudimentary defenses. The prospect of fending off the oncoming rebel army was daunting. There was also the issue of what would happen if they resisted until the bitter end, with the city ultimately falling to the rebels. The entire Pingyang County would undoubtedly be ransacked. Reports from other towns indicated that any town that resisted would be burned and pillaged, leading to the creation of numerous refugees. Alternatively, if they surrendered without a fight, the outcome may be slightly better, but the rebels were not interested in governing, and would only seek to acquire resources. Pingyang County was at a loss on what to do, with both options posing great difficulties, and both potentially leading to their demise. The only difference was that one was standing and the other kneeling. 10 miles away. Did the imperial court's army retreat? Tan Zhenan asked the scout below as he sat on his horse. Yes, they have all evacuated, and in the past few days, they have taken away a lot of Pingyang County's resources, the scout replied with a lowered head. What a bunch of cowards. With this kind of courage, they dare to lead the army into battle. Hua Shizhong sneered. If it weren't for this group of people, how could we have risen to power? Moreover, if they used Pingyang County to fight us, even if we win in the end, we will suffer heavy losses, Tan Zhenan said as he looked at the faintly visible city in the distance. He waved his hand, and the entire army accelerated forward. Now that the imperial court's army was not here, Pingyang County was already theirs. Whether Pingyang County resisted or not did not matter to Tan Zhenan, as he had already made ample preparations to plunder the county. While the people of Pingyang County were still wavering, the city gates of the southern city were already open. 7 or 8 of the bailiffs guarding the city were killed before they all surrendered. They had no choice but to surrender since a marrow tempering realm expert was a crushing existence against the bailiffs who were at most at the body tempering realm. At some point in time, there were rebel soldiers hiding in Pingyang County. If the county government was determined enough to defend the city, they would naturally send heavy troops to guard each city gate. However, with such a cautious mentality, the defense of the city gate naturally became a joke. Chen Fei stayed in his courtyard and listened to the commotion outside. He felt a little irritated. A few days ago, he had thought that the rebel army would not come, but now, they were right in front of him. The medical center had closed after receiving the news of the arrival of the rebel army. Chen Fei originally thought about whether he should go to the Zhang family's place to hide, but after thinking about it, he decided against it. When the rebel army entered the city, their biggest target was the aristocratic families. If he hid inside, Chen Fei would easily be implicated. Moreover, the Zhang family did not allow Chen Fei to enter the residence, indicating that they did not intend to protect him. As for whether the rebel army would loot the civilians, it would depend on how low their standards were. If it came to it, Chen Fei could only take things as they come. At this time, the usefulness of the disguise technique was reflected. At least, no one would recognize him. In the eyes of an expert, this disguise technique probably has some flaws. If there's a chance in the future, I'll have to find a stronger disguise technique to learn, Chen Fei thought as he returned to the pill room. He came to a wash basin and buried his entire face in cold water. Clear heart technique experience points +1. Experience points +1. As Chen Fei continued to practice the clear heart formula, he found a way to increase his experience points, by burying his entire head in cold water for a period of time. He had become so skilled at the technique that he was nearing perfection. With a clear and calm mind, he was able to make decisions more quickly and confidently. However, Chen Fei's ultimate goal was to leave Pingying County and join the Cloud Sword sect. He hoped that the stable environment there would allow him to continue to grow and learn. Moreover, he believed that the sect's access to resources such as medicinal herbs and secret techniques would be much higher than in Pingying County. Meanwhile, at the county's yamen, government office, the local officials and powerful families were gathered to meet with Tan Zhenan, a military general. Unlike their jovial interactions with the imperial army, the atmosphere was tense and apprehensive. "Since everyone is here, I will speak," Tan Zhenan said with a smile. "You all know why I'm here." The county magistrate replied, "General Tan, we will do everything in our power to meet your demands." "Good," Tan Zhenan said. "Otherwise, if someone fails to comply, will be accused of not providing adequate advance notice." He then proceeded to announce the exorbitant sums of money and resources each family was required to contribute. The families were alarmed by the demands, which would drain their resources entirely. "My Zhou family has not been doing well in recent years, and I cannot come up with that much silver," one member protested. "My Zheng family is small and cannot afford this," another added. Before anyone could say anything else, there was a flash of light, and they were suddenly covered in fresh blood. The two men who had spoken up earlier had already become corpses. "This isn't a negotiation, it's an order," Hua Shizhong said, nonchalantly sheathing his sword. His smirk conveyed amusement at the family's fear. "If anyone cannot fulfill their obligations, speak up now. 2 days to pay the money, 10 days to deliver the goods." With that, Tan Zhenan dismissed the meeting, which had been nothing more than a series of orders. The members of each family glanced at each other, especially at the corpses on the ground, and shuddered involuntarily. The atmosphere was such that one wrong word could mean drawing a sword and killing someone without a second thought. After the meeting, everyone returned to their respective families and passed on the news. It was clear that lives were being bought with money now, and those who refused to pay had already met their fate at the county yamen. Chapter 40. 3 Immortal Swords. In the backyard of the county office, Tan Zhenan was practicing a set of powerful fist techniques. Each strike produced a deep sound that resonated like a war drum, causing those around him to feel a sense of tension. After a while, Tan Zhenan stopped and turned to Hua Shizhong. "Have you thoroughly investigated the matter?" he asked. Hua Shizhong nodded. "Yes, I have. The best inner strength practitioner in Pingying County is Hua Linjin of the Zhao family. He was brought back by the Zhao family's ancestors from outside the county. He's not considered weak even in the visceral tempering realm. And there are also the Li family's water drop sword and the Zhang family's sky-treading sparrow techniques, both of which are extraordinary. Bring some people back in 10 days and retrieve these cultivation techniques," Tan Zhenan ordered. But I'm afraid those people won't agree, Hua Shizhong said. Find an excuse and ally with a few aristocratic families. There will always be someone willing to help us act as the vanguard, Tan Zhenan replied. Hua Shizhong smiled cruelly. This was his favorite thing to do. Getting these aristocratic families to surrender their resources was just the beginning. The next step was to devour a portion of the families and seize their assets. This would minimize resistance and maximize benefits. Oh, and a few friends from the Green Forest want to join us. Do you want to accept them? Hua Shizhong asked. Do as you see fit, Tan Zhenan replied, taking a sip of tea. After you get those secret manuals, send them directly to me. Hua Shizhong bowed and watched Tan Zhenan return to his study with reverence in his eyes. The following morning, the Zhang family approached Chen Fei with a request to refine the Qi rejuvenation pill. The rebel army had demanded not only silver but also a large number of medicinal pills and grain from all the aristocratic families in Pingying County, leaving them in a desperate situation. In the face of such a powerful force, these usually arrogant aristocratic families seemed no different from ordinary people. Although Chen Fei did not have a good relationship with the Zhang family and had even reneged on his promise to share the formula for the light spirit pill last time, he agreed to their request after careful consideration. After all, staying with the Zhang family was still relatively safe, and he didn't know when he could leave Pingying County, given the dangers outside. Chen Fei's cultivation was too weak, and he lacked the experience of surviving in the wild. He was afraid he wouldn't be able to complete his mission if he traveled a long distance. The refining task the Zhang family gave him was indeed heavy for an ordinary alchemist. But Chen Fei had already perfected the formula for the Qi rejuvenation pill and was able to produce the maximum number of pills from each furnace, which meant he only needed 4 hours to complete the task. He kept the remaining medicinal herbs for himself since there were no more available in Pingying County, and it was impossible to hire refugees to leave the city due to the rebel army's blockade. After being closed for 3 days, the black market quietly reopened. However, compared to its former liveliness, the dark market was now deserted, with food and medicinal pills being the most sought-after items. Food was a given, but pills could be traded for some food from the aristocratic families. In the end, eating was the most important thing. Is there really no way to leave Pingying County? Chen Fei asked Qi Defeng as they sat in a small house. Despite Qi Defeng always fooling Chen Fei with fake medicine, the two of them had a good relationship. Chen Fei knew that Qi Defeng, having been a black market peddler for so many years, was undoubtedly much stronger than him in terms of social connections. There is a way to leave Pingying County, but we don't have any caravans going to the Cloud Sword sect, Qi Defeng said helplessly as he reclined on a chair. I don't have to go directly to the Cloud Sword sect, I can go to other places first, Chen Fei whispered. As the various aristocratic families handed over supplies and the rebel army restrained their soldiers, Pingying County was only a little quieter than usual, with no major killings or looting. However, perhaps due to his cultivation of the clear heart formula, Chen Fei felt a storm brewing. Something else might happen 10 days later. Before that, if there was a chance, Chen Fei still hoped to leave Pingying County. No, there isn't, Qi Defeng shook his head. There were already very few caravans before, and recently, there hasn't been a single one. What are your plans then? Chen Fei asked Qi Defeng in confusion. This shrewd man must have a backup plan. Wait for these rebels to leave, Qi Defeng stood up and rubbed his waist. Those rebel soldiers are targeting those aristocratic families. No one cares about civilians like us. As long as we are careful, we can get through this. Chen Fei looked at Qi Defeng suspiciously but said nothing, turning and leaving the black market. As time passed, the Zhang family came to collect the Qi rejuvenation pills every day, and the security of Pingying County began to deteriorate. The restrained soldiers gradually started to show their true nature, and robbery and murder started to appear in Pingying County. Most were committed by the rebel army, and some by the people of Pingying County themselves. In such an environment, the evil in some people's hearts found its way out. Chen Fei listened to the occasional cries and did nothing, as it was beyond his ability. Instead, he worked harder to cultivate, never wasting a moment. Chen Fei was unsure if it was due to the pressure, but on the 5th day, he managed to crack the recipe for the light spirit pill and successfully made it for the first time. Alchemy Technique, Light Spirit Pill, Beginner 1/100. Simplifying the Light Spirit Pill. Simplification was successful. Light Spirit Pill to Qi Rejuvenation Pill. A smile appeared on Chen Fei's face as he couldn't buy any medicine on the market lately. Now that he could make the Light Spirit Pill, he could finally be self-sufficient with the materials he had saved up. On the 8th day, the 3 martial arts secret manuals he received from the Zhang family were completely integrated by Chen Fei. Martial arts, ascending cloud steps, great completion. Compared to the cloud crossing he had before, Chen Fei's speed had now fully increased to his previous brisk walking state. If he briskly walked now, there was a feeling of lightning-fast speed. Although it might be a bit exaggerated, Chen Fei's martial arts had indeed improved. On the 11th day, in the evening, Chen Fei buried his head in cold water. At some point, the world seemed to become quiet. Chen Fei stood up unconsciously, looking at the surroundings and sensing every thought that floated through his mind. A feeling of complete control over himself rose in Chen Fei's heart. Instinctively, he picked up the long sword next to him and used the fire sword. Although he had already practiced the fire sword to great completion, he had never felt as thorough as he did now. In a moment of contemplation, the immortal way shot out instantly. The next moment, 3 sword lights flashed, finally merging into one in mid-air, flickering for a moment before slowly dissipating. Chen Fei joyfully watched the sword light. Just now, he had used the immortal way 3 times in an instant, which was impossible in the past. But today, he did it. 3 immortal swords. Bzzzt. Chen Fei muttered to himself when a sudden dizziness attacked his brain. He stumbled and leaned against the wall. After a while, Chen Fei opened his eyes and found that the feeling of control he had just experienced was gone. Chapter 41, Chapter 41, Wiped Clean. Chapter 41, Wiped Clean. Translator, Dragon Boat Translation Editor, Dragon Boat Translation. Cultivation Method, Clear Heart Formula, Great Completion. I never expected that, after reaching the peak of the heart cleansing technique, I would be able to activate such a special state, Chen Fei pondered, reflecting on the recent events. The level of control he had over his body and his surroundings was so profound that it completely immersed him. However, this state had its limitations. Its duration was short, and it carried significant side effects. After taking a brief rest, Chen Fei noticed a slight improvement in his dizziness. The special state induced by the clear heart formula had a remarkably apparent impact on enhancing his combat strength. Just by employing 3 immortal swords, Chen Fei could wield a completely new lethal technique. The 3 immortal swords originated from the immortal cloud sword, but Chen Fei had only managed to obtain a fragmented version of the secret manual. Consequently, many of the sword moves were incomprehensible gibberish. As a result, the 3 immortal sword could be considered a technique devised by Chen Fei himself. In comparison to the immortal shows the way technique, the power of the 3 swords was considerably greater. It was conceivable that this technique could pose a threat to martial artists in the marrow refinement realm, albeit a minor one. However, given Chen Fei's relatively low inner strength realm, bridging the gap between 2 levels to confront an enemy was an extremely arduous task. It's quite surprising. Chen Fei couldn't help but break into a smile. As he wiped the water off his face with a towel, a series of urgent knocks echoed from outside the courtyard. "Steward Chen, is Steward Chen here?" Lu Jun's voice carried an air of anxiety. Curiosity piqued, Chen Fei opened the courtyard door, only to find Lu Jun panting heavily. Sensing the urgency in Lu Jun's demeanor, Chen Fei allowed him to enter and promptly closed the door behind him. Observing Lu Jun's peculiar behavior, Chen Fei held back his urge to inquire, patiently awaiting an explanation. The Zhang family has been annihilated. Lu Jun turned to look at Chen Fei, his voice low and solemn. What? Chen Fei couldn't help but freeze, completely taken aback by the news he received from Lu Jun. The Zhao family brought their people and surrounded the Zhang family. The family head was killed, and many young masters and young ladies lost their lives, Lu Jun uttered, his body involuntarily trembling as he spoke. Lu Jun had grown up working in the clinic and considered the Zhang family as his own. Hearing of their sudden destruction felt like the collapse of his world. Chen Fei probed for more details, wanting to understand the full extent of the situation. He learned that the rebel army had joined forces with the Zhao family and used a flimsy pretext to launch a direct attack on the Zhang family. Without any opportunity to defend themselves, Zhang Ting and several elders of the Zhang clan were instantly killed. All the direct descendants had perished, leaving only a handful of collateral relatives barely clinging to life. The Zhang family's wealth and resources were seized, and the surviving collateral relatives were forcibly expelled from the mansion, and left to wander the streets as homeless individuals. The once proud Zhang family had been utterly shattered. It wasn't just the Zhang family that suffered, two other aristocratic families were also implicated in the incident. The rebel army and other aristocratic families found convenient excuses to annex them as well. He truly left nothing behind, Chen Fei muttered to himself. After the various aristocratic families surrendered their resources, the rebel soldiers mercilessly unleashed their blades. Perhaps fearing severe repercussions, they formed an alliance with the other aristocratic families in Pingying County to minimize their losses. While conflicts and grudges among the county's aristocratic families were not uncommon, they were usually kept in check and restrained. However, the current situation had thrown such restraints out the window. The thirst for power and the opportunity to seize resources had overridden any sense of moderation or diplomacy. With more powerful rebel soldiers now in their ranks and have already suffered significant losses, it was unlikely that they would let go of any opportunity to strengthen themselves. Killing other aristocratic families to replenish their forces seemed like a plausible course of action. Steward Chen, do you think something will happen to us? Lu Jun asked anxiously, his face pale. His utmost concern was whether the Zhao family also target them given that they'd annihilated the Zhang family. We're just employees at the medical center. We aren't direct descendants of the Zhang family, Chen Fei contemplated for a moment, his certainty wavering. Logically speaking, the Zhao family wouldn't pose a threat to them. However, in this world, common sense seemed to hold little weight. The unfolding events had shattered any sense of predictability or stability. Boom! 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 The sound of someone pounding on the door reverberated through the room, causing Chen Fei to furrow his brows. He approached the door and opened it, revealing three individuals standing outside. One of them held a portrait in his hand, constantly comparing it to Chen Fei. Are you Chen Fei? The man asked. Yes, 1M, Chen Fei replied, his curiosity piqued. He glanced at the portrait and recognized that it depicted his own likeness. The level of preparation and attention to detail involved was truly meticulous. I am Zhao Xia. The Qingzheng Medical Center will now belong to the Zhao family. Come with me immediately, the family wishes to meet you, Zhao Xia declared proudly. Chen Fei contemplated for a moment, weighing his options, before nodding. Very well. Lead the way. With the Zhao family currently at the height of their power, Chen Fei saw no need to provoke them unnecessarily. Besides, he was also curious about the circumstances surrounding the Zhang family's downfall. Understanding what had transpired would be beneficial. Good, good. Zhao Xia exclaimed happily, pleased with Chen Fei's cooperation. An alchemist held significant value to the Zhao family. Chen Fei turned to Lu Jun and gave him a few instructions before following Zhao Xia and the other two individuals to the residence of the Zhao family. Compared to the somber atmosphere of the past few days, the Zhao family's residence appeared much livelier today. Chen Fei glanced around and noticed several familiar faces from the medical center in the crowd. Elder Zeng. Chen Fei approached Zheng Difang's side and called out in a hushed voice. Chen Fei, you're here. Zheng Difang turned towards him and let out a slight sigh. He placed a comforting hand on Chen Fei's shoulder and said, "Be cautious in the coming days. If you encounter any difficulties, don't hesitate to seek my help." "Thank you, Elder Zheng." Chen Fei lifted his gaze and observed Zheng Difang closely. He could see the signs of fatigue etched on Zheng Difang's face. The sudden destruction of the Zhang family must have deeply affected him. After all, Zheng Difang had worked closely with the Zhang family for many years, and they had treated him well. There was undoubtedly still a lingering sense of attachment between them. Now that he was part of the Zhao family, Zheng Difang would not be taken lightly. His ability to refine the light spirit pill, one of the highest grade cultivation pills in Pingying County, made him a valuable asset. It was unlikely that any aristocratic family would overlook such a lucrative opportunity. Soon, the head of the Zhao family arrived in the hall and offered comforting words, providing some solace to those who had previously worked at the medical center and rice shop. Chen Fei pretended to listen attentively, but his attention was secretly fixed on another person, Ling Hanjun, the leader of the mountain bandits who had once wreaked havoc in the city. Chen Fei was taken aback by the unexpected encounter with Ling Han in this setting. Moreover, Ling Hanjun appeared to be a distinguished guest of the Zhao family, which left Chen Fei quite surprised. Chen Fei decided not to conceal his thoughts. The face he had encountered before was likely a disguise. After all, Chen Fei was now just a seemingly harmless alchemist in the skin toughening realm. "I've heard that Brother Ling has been searching for someone. If there's anything the Zhao family needs assistance with, Brother Ling, please don't hesitate to ask," Zhao Chenji said with a smile. The previous night, when they besieged the Zhang family, Ling Hanjun's strength had impressed Zhao Chenji greatly. Ling Hanjun's cultivation was at the peak of the bone-forging realm, and his fighting skills were profound and exquisite. He stood out even among the rebel soldiers as an exceptional individual. Recently, I have encountered several martial artists at the bone-tempering realm. Are there any other notable experts in Pingying County who have reached the bone-tempering realm or beyond? Ling Hanjun swept his gaze across the individuals present below the stage, his disappointment evident. "Brother Ling, are you seeking a sparring partner?" Zhao Chenji speculated, thinking that Ling Hanjun desired to enhance his skills in preparation for advancing to the marrow refinement realm. "No, I am searching for an adversary. He is the one who killed my brother." Ling Hanjun's expression turned cold, his eyes filled with a chilling determination. "Who dares to be so audacious?" Zhao Chenji exclaimed, his voice filled with righteous indignation. "Brother Ling, if you have a portrait of that individual, I can rally the Zhao family's resources to assist you in locating that thief." Ling Hanjun furrowed his brows, deep in thought. "I've been contemplating this for some time now. It's highly likely that the person I encountered that day had mastered the art of disguise. The appearance one witnessed may have been a facade," he speculated. Ling Hanjun considered the possibility that the person in question had learned to conceal their true identity. Additionally, it was also plausible that the individual had already left Pingying County, which explained the difficulty in finding them. Chapter 42, No Refund. Chapter 42, No Refund. Translator Dragon Boat Translation Editor, Dragon Boat Translation. Whether it was seeking revenge for Ling Hanjun or retrieving the piece of leather paper, Ling Hanjun was determined to find and eliminate the responsible individual. Disguise. That does complicate matters, Zhao Chenji acknowledged, pondering the situation. After a moment, he suggested, "However, I can recommend someone to you, Ling Hanjun. he possesses extensive knowledge in disguising techniques. Perhaps he can be of assistance. Intrigued, Ling Hanjun asked, "Who is this person?" "It is Xin Wengxiang, the former constable of Pingying County," Zhao Qinji replied with a smile. With the Zhao family's banquet swiftly coming to an end, everyone began to disperse. Chen Fei's position as the deputy steward of the North City Medical Center remained unchanged. It seemed that the Zhao family did not have a suitable candidate to replace him, so they decided to maintain the current management structure. Given the circumstances, the Zhao family believed that nobody would dare to cause trouble. The consequences faced by the Zhang family served as a stark warning to others. As time passed, it surprised everyone that the rebel army did not withdraw from Pingying County despite acquiring sufficient supplies. Instead, they chose to stay behind. The county government had effectively dissolved, and the rebel forces had assumed control over Pingying County. The person in charge of the county now belonged to the rebel faction. The various aristocratic families in Pingying County found themselves in a state of distress. Initially, they had anticipated that the rebel army would eventually depart from the county. After all, the rebel forces stationed in Pingying County were just a smaller contingent, with the main force operating elsewhere. It seemed that this rebel army was primarily focused on looting supplies, which they would then deliver to the main army. If the imperial forces had chosen another location as their base, it would have been relatively simple to handle a rebel force of Pingying County's scale. However, to their surprise, the rebel army chose to remain in Pingying County and assert control over everything. This unexpected development left the aristocratic families in a state of uncertainty and unease. The city gates swung open, and the flow of supplies resumed. The shops in Pingying County reopened for business, giving the illusion that everything was back to normal. However, everyone was acutely aware that everything had changed. While the frequency of killings and pillaging had reduced compared to the initial chaos, such incidents still occurred sporadically. Unfortunately, it was the rebel soldiers themselves who often committed these crimes. Despite Tan Zhenan's attempts to maintain discipline among his subordinates, the structure of the rebel army was complex and decentralized. Orders and prohibitions were difficult to enforce effectively. Even when rebel soldiers committed wrongdoings, the punishment was often carried out by their fellow comrades. The situation remained unpredictable and volatile, leaving the people of Pingying County on edge, knowing that safety and stability were far from assured. Fair punishment would indeed be a rarity in such circumstances. Those who dared to engage in acts of arson, murder, and plunder were swiftly executed without trial. All the pills in Pingying County, particularly those used for cultivation, had been confiscated and collected by the rebel army. The various aristocratic families were required to deliver a specified quantity of pills every month, while the remainder would be retained by the rebel forces. Similarly, other resources, though not as exaggerated as pills, had to be surrendered to the rebel army as well. In return, the rebel army offered only a small amount of silver taels as a form of compensation. The people from the aristocratic families were left astounded by this turn of events. They never expected to be held captive and forced to toil for the benefit of the rebel army. Their autonomy and freedom had been completely stripped away. The outcome that unfolded was beyond anyone's expectations. With the annexation of other aristocratic families, Pingying County, which was already relatively weak, became even more vulnerable. Any thoughts of resistance were quickly dismissed, as it seemed futile against the overwhelming rebel forces. The notion of moving their entire families out of Pingying County was too perilous for any aristocratic family to consider. It would be akin to a slave attempting to escape if caught. The consequences would be dire. The same applied to the aristocratic families. If they were to dare leave Pingying County during this time, the repercussions would be severe if they were apprehended. The rebel soldiers had replaced the guards at all 4 city gates, making it virtually impossible for anyone with valuable skills or connections to leave Pingying County. Only ordinary people without any particular expertise or influence were allowed to enter and exit the county with relative ease. The rebel army appeared to be utilizing Pingying County as a logistical hub or a testing ground. They seemed to understand that complete destruction would hinder their own growth and ambitions. Therefore, the county remained intact to some extent. The Zhao family began to exert their influence over the medical hall, pressuring them to provide pills. Chen Fei found himself burdened with numerous tasks and responsibilities, but his compensation was reduced to a basic salary. The aristocratic families, already facing financial strain, struggled to meet the demands imposed upon them. It became a cycle of oppression, the rebel army oppressing the aristocratic families, and the aristocratic families, in turn, oppressing others. Chen Fei did not resist this arrangement and instead cooperated. Whenever someone from the Zhao family approached him, he feigned exhaustion, reflecting the weight of his responsibilities and the toll it took on him. Chen Fei portrayed a pale complexion and unsteady footsteps as if he were on the verge of collapsing at any moment. However, he consistently delivered the required quantities of medicinal pills without any sign of shirking his responsibilities. The members of the Zhao family couldn't help but feel a sense of sympathy towards Chen Fei. Their concern primarily stemmed from the fear that if Chen Fei were to collapse, there would be a shortfall in the pill deliveries each month, ultimately leading to their own misfortune. In response, they increased the amount of money provided to Chen Fei. Additionally, they offered him better quality food and beverages, hoping that these provisions would help sustain Chen Fei amidst the intensity of his pill refinement tasks. Simultaneously, the Zhao family instructed Chen Fei to refrain from working at the medical hall and instead conduct his pill refinement within his own courtyard. They would provide him with the necessary medicinal herbs and collect the completed pills on a daily basis. At night, once the Zhao family members had left, Chen Fei would wearily close the door, straightening his back as the fatigue vanished from his face. In reality, his pill refinement skills far surpassed the public perception. Although his displayed level of qi rejuvenation pill refining was only at the master level, and the quantity of pills produced seemed average, Chen Fei completed the day's tasks in a mere 2 hours. He would then use the remaining herbs to refine pills for his personal use. Having refined a substantial number of herbal pills and honed his proficiency in the light spirit pill to perfection, Chen Fei estimated that he would be able to break through to the level of great completion in a short period of time. This kind of life seemed pretty good. Despite the apparent stability, Chen Fei remained determined to find a way to leave Pingying County and explore other cities. However, the recent heightened activity of the gangrene on his arm raised concerns. This had previously occurred during his pursuit of Sun Shu, indicating that something unusual or potentially dangerous was happening in the vicinity. Although there seemed to be nothing out of the ordinary in Pingying County itself, the recurrence of the gangrene left Chen Fei feeling a sense of unease and caution. Chen Fei had even contemplated changing his appearance and infiltrating the rebel army in order to make his escape from Pingying County. However, the unexpected decision of the rebel army to remain in the county had disrupted his plans, leaving him with limited options and increasing his sense of urgency. In recent times, have there been any unusual occurrences outside the city? Chen Fei asked Qi Defeng as they met in the black market. Yes, the situation has been rather abnormal lately, Qi Defeng responded, nodding. He explained that they were facing difficulties in hiring refugees to venture outside the city. Many people were too fearful to travel to Pingying Mountain, despite the increased payments from the aristocratic families. Although the rebel army had attempted to enter Pingying Mountain multiple times, they had yet to achieve any significant gains. If this situation continues, something is bound to happen, isn't it? Chen Fei remarked with a grave tone, expressing his concern over the escalating circumstances. Recently, there is a group being organized to leave Pingying County. If you're interested in leaving, I'll notify you when the time comes, Qi Defeng suggested after considering the situation. What will be the price? Chen Fei inquired. It won't be cheap, and you'll likely be charged a high fee on the spot, Qi Defeng warned. Very well, Chen Fei nodded, feeling a sense of relief. As long as he could secure a means of departure, he was willing to pay the price. The specific amount of money was a concern, but Chen Fei believed he could manage the necessary travel expenses. With a significant stash of Qi rejuvenation pills, Chen Fei had been contemplating selling them in the black market. The current market price for medicinal pills had reached a relatively high level, and Chen Fei's anticipation grew. He couldn't afford to wait any longer. Moreover, he recently discovered a peculiar feature on the interface. It allowed him to save real money, but he couldn't withdraw it. Once he topped up, there would be no possibility of a refund. The funds could only be utilized for simplification transactions. He was really using his money to create happiness in that sense. Chapter 43, Chapter 43, I'm making a fortune. Chapter 43, I'm making a fortune. Translator, Dragon Boat Translation Editor, Dragon Boat Translation. Do you sell Qi rejuvenation pill? In the black market, Chen Fei altered his appearance once again. He approached a stall and inquired cautiously about the price. 25 taels, the stall owner responded lazily, casting a casual glance at Chen Fei. Chen Fei expressed surprise at the steep price. Just 2 days prior, he had conducted his investigations and found that the cost was still 20 taels per pill. The sudden and significant increase caught him off guard. Prior to the arrival of the rebel army, the market price for the Qi rejuvenation pill had been a mere 10 taels per pill. The current exorbitant price reflected the turbulent circumstances and the rising demand for such medicinal items. Don't assume it's too expensive. You're aware of the current situation in Pingying County. The majority of the pills have been requisitioned, and it's already challenging to obtain even a small quantity, the stall owner clarified, noticing Chen Fei's sudden retreat before finishing his inquiry. Indeed, Chen Fei agreed, a smile spreading across his face. He asked, do you accept Qi rejuvenation pills? The stall owner raised an eyebrow in response. You want to sell them? The stall owner, who had been reclining in his chair, suddenly sat up straight and regarded Chen Fei attentively. What does it look like? Actually, the appearance doesn't matter much. What quantity can you provide daily? If it's a substantial amount, we can negotiate the price. I can guarantee around 20 to 30 pills per day, Chen Fei responded confidently. Good. If you can maintain that quantity, 111 offer you this price per pill, the stall owner agreed, making a gesture to indicate his agreement. Observing the gesture, Chen Fei shook his head slightly. You were selling them for 25 taels, but you're only willing to pay 15 taels. That's too low. Chen Fei recognized the disparity in the offered price and sought a more equitable agreement for his Qi rejuvenation pills. 15 taels may not be insignificant, but I also have my own expenses to bear, the stall owner replied with a chuckle. All right, I will take it into consideration, Chen Fei responded without elaborating further. He smiled and began to walk away. Sigh, don't go just yet. We can negotiate the price, the stall owner called out, hoping to engage in further discussion and reach a more favorable agreement. Seeing Chen Fei about to depart, the stall owner hastily halted him. In the current circumstances, pill refiners who could freely roam outside were as rare as phoenix feathers and Kylan horns. The opportunity to purchase 20 to 30 Qi rejuvenation pills each day would undoubtedly be significant. Chen Fei paused and gazed at the stall owner without uttering a word. Name your price, the stall owner conceded, feeling somewhat helpless. 23 taels, Chen Fei proposed. The stall owner shook his head vigorously as if playing a rattle drum. This price is too high. The prices of pills fluctuate every few days. Perhaps in a few days, you might turn a profit, Chen Fei suggested, hoping to negotiate a more favorable deal. The stall owner responded skeptically, how can prices keep increasing? There are very few people who can afford 25 taels. One only took them to provide a backup supply for my main family. In that case, how much do you propose? Chen Fei inquired. 16 taels. This price seems reasonable, the stall owner suggested. After some haggling, Chen Fei and the stall owner eventually agreed upon a purchase price of 20 taels per pill. Although Chen Fei appeared somewhat regretful on the surface, he couldn't hide his internal delight. Prior to the arrival of the rebel army, Chen Fei had sold qi rejuvenation pills for less than 8 taels each, and he had to personally procure the medicinal ingredients. Now, with the Zhao family providing the herbs and the soaring price of qi rejuvenation pills in the market, Chen Fei was making a significant profit. Utilizing his refined method for producing great completion qi rejuvenation pills, he could sell approximately 25 pills on the black market daily. This translated to a profit of 500 taels of silver per day. Comparing this to the past, it was an enormous leap and a considerable increase in income for Chen Fei. Take a look at these medicinal pills. There are approximately 100 of them, Chen Fei stated as he retrieved a medicine bottle from his bag. The stall owner dared not be careless. While appearance might not have been a priority earlier, having better-looking pills would certainly be more desirable. As the cork was opened, a delightful medicinal fragrance wafted through the air. The stall owner meticulously poured out one pill and examined its smooth and round surface, eliciting a smile of satisfaction. With the quality of the qi rejuvenation pills at such a level, paying the agreed-upon price was not a loss. The stall owner anticipated receiving praise from his main family for having made such a shrewd purchase. Keep the money safe, the stall owner advised Chen Fei. He checked the quantity of pills once more, ensuring that everything was in order. He then swiftly counted the silver and placed it in front of Chen Fei. The weight of the 2,000 taels of silver was substantial, resulting in a muffled sound as it landed on the counter. In the black market, transactions were typically conducted in cash, and the use of banknotes was rare. Due to the presence of the rebel army, people were apprehensive about employing banknotes. Chen Fei shouldered the package of silver and gazed at the stall owner, inquiring, "Do you also accept the light spirit pills?" The stall owner's eyes widened in astonishment. This was an unexpected revelation. In the past, the market price for light spirit pills had been 15 taels, but it had now skyrocketed. Consequently, very few martial artists chose to use light spirit pills for cultivation. Even those in the bone-tempering realm primarily relied on the qi rejuvenation pills. Despite the decreased demand for light spirit pills among martial artists, the rebel army continued to seek them eagerly. Chen Fei realized that if he had a sufficient supply of light spirit pills, he could potentially exchange some for qi rejuvenation pills and vitality pills. I have the knowledge of how to refine light spirit pills, although my proficiency is average, and one don't produce a large quantity. If you're willing to trust me, you can provide the herbs, and we can split the profits according to an agreed-upon ratio, Chen Fei proposed. Chen Fei had nearly exhausted his own stock of light spirit pill ingredients. With no medicinal herbs available in Pingying County and Qi Defeng unable to find any refugees to gather them, Chen Fei had no choice but to turn to the stall owners. Many of these individuals were affiliated with aristocratic families in Pingying County and might have access to the necessary resources. One set of medicinal ingredients for one light spirit pill. That's the bottom line, the stall owner asserted, contemplating the proposal. After a moment of consideration, he proposed, "How about this? We will provide the medicinal ingredients in exchange for one light spirit pill. Additionally, we will compensate you with 3 taels of silver for your efforts." Chen Fei smiled and replied, "It's a little too low. How about 6 taels? I'm fond of that number." The stall owner thought for a moment and eventually agreed, saying, "All right. Take it as I'm making friends with you." He recognized that there were only a handful of pill refiners in Pingying County capable of producing light spirit pills. Moreover, attempting to cultivate new pill refiners was no longer a viable option due to the scarcity of medicinal herbs. Exchanging a portion of medicinal herbs for a light spirit pill was already a fair deal. In the past, this would have been considered a lucrative profit. However, with the current skyrocketing value of medicinal herbs, it could only be deemed as a decent trade. "Give me 3 sets of medicinal herbs in advance." "I'll find you tomorrow," Chen Fei requested. "All right, please wait a moment," the stall owner replied. He then proceeded to the back hall and instructed his staff to gather the medicinal herbs. Simultaneously, he reported the transaction to the relevant parties. Within the time it took for an incense stick to burn, the medicinal herbs were placed into Chen Fei's hands. He examined the ingredients to ensure their quality, then politely bid farewell to the stall owner before leaving the black market. As Chen Fei was halfway through his journey, he transferred all the silver taels into the interface, causing his burden to lighten. Surprisingly, the mysterious little tael did not appear this time, which was unexpected but also a relief for Chen Fei. It seemed that the aristocratic family backing the stall owner was genuinely interested in cooperating with him, or perhaps they were simply taking their time to observe. Cautiously navigating the streets of Pingying County a few times, Chen Fei eventually returned to his rented courtyard. Instead of immediately engaging in pill refinement, he decided to take a moment to rest. Retrieving a secret manual from his belongings, he began studying the origin returning bow technique. Chen Fei had acquired a total of 3 books from Qi Defeng, and there were no more available copies. The art of archery was not widely practiced among martial artists, and it was even rarer to find manuals on the subject. In the military, more individuals used bows and arrows, but the secret manuals were heavily guarded and rarely found outside. Chen Fei's decision to practice archery was not due to a perceived weakness in his swordsmanship. Instead, he wanted to expand his repertoire and have a long-range method of engaging enemies. While hidden weapons were a viable option, their limited range posed a disadvantage. Given Chen Fei's accomplished movement technique and the significant investment he had made in refining it, it made sense to explore long-range combat methods such as archery. Chen Fei recognized that in close-quarter combat, his exceptional movement technique compensated for any deficiencies. However, when faced with opponents who were too strong or situations that required long-range engagement, he was reluctant to rely solely on close combat. This was where the bow and arrow would prove advantageous. Another motivating factor for Chen Fei's pursuit of archery was that he had recently reached the pinnacle of proficiency in all the techniques he had mastered. There was a limit to the time he could devote to cultivating his inner strength, and he couldn't spend the entire day refining pills. Furthermore, even if he had an abundance of medicinal herbs, Chen Fei wouldn't want to continue refining endlessly. Earning money and accumulating wealth brought a sense of satisfaction and happiness, and the interface also required silver for various purposes. However, Chen Fei understood that these endeavors should not overshadow his primary goal of increasing his strength. It was crucial for him to maintain a balanced approach. Chen Fei acknowledged that maintaining a steady progression in his proficiency and witnessing his strength grow incrementally had become an integral part of his life. He couldn't afford to quit or become complacent. The pursuit of strength was a lifelong journey, and he was determined to continue pushing forward. Chapter 44, Examination. Chapter 44, Examination. Discovered the origin returning bow technique. Would you like to spend 1 tael of silver to learn the simplified version of the origin returning bow technique? The origin returning bow technique is being simplified. Simplification is successful. Origin returning bow technique - mix noodles. Once again, Chen Fei found himself taken aback by this unexpected simplification. He blinked, wondering about the connection between an archery technique and noodle mixing. Did they all share a one-track mind? However, noodles were certainly not tendons. Chen Fei grinned and rummaged through the food reserves, but to his dismay, he couldn't find any noodles. Nevertheless, he knew a simple solution to this problem. He would have the Zhao family send some over tomorrow. In the eyes of the Zhao family, Chen Fei was merely a gold worker. If he wanted to enjoy a bowl of noodles, he had to make a special request to fulfill this culinary desire. Since he couldn't farm proficiency at the moment, Chen Fei decided to shift his focus to something else. He took out the medicinal ingredients he had acquired earlier for the light spirit pill. The proficiency of the light spirit pill was still slightly below grade completion, but Chen Fei estimated that he would be able to achieve it within a few more days. Although he hadn't reached complete mastery, he had successfully refined the light spirit pill, and the quantity of pills produced was substantial. Currently, Chen Fei was in the process of refining a cauldron of light spirit pills. He anticipated having at least 2 pills, and if luck was on his side, he might end up with 3. Therefore, in the underground market, exchanging a set of medicinal herbs for a light spirit pill and receiving a payment of 6 taels of silver proved to be yet another profitable transaction for Chen Fei. Ultimately, gaining expertise in his craft was akin to acquiring the key to wealth. The more advanced the technology, the greater the potential for wealth. In comparison to other pill refiners, who could only reach the master level in their proficiency with the spirit pill, they would only be able to produce 1 pill per cauldron and earn a fraction of the hard-earned subsidy money. The following afternoon, in response to Chen Fei's request, the Zhao family sent over a box of noodles. This prompted Chen Fei to reorganize his schedule, balancing his time between mixing noodles, concocting pills, and cultivating his inner strength. Meanwhile, he eagerly awaited news from Qi Defeng. The rebel army's activities at Mount Pingyuan seemed to be growing increasingly peculiar. They were gathering more frequently, indicating their genuine intention to govern Pingyuan County effectively. Perhaps as a result of the rebel army's diligent efforts, the eerie phenomena on Pingyuan Mountain began to diminish. The dense atmosphere of danger and death that once permeated the area had subsided. The general sentiment of the people in Pingyuan County towards the rebel army also seemed to improve slightly. Common folk naturally harbored fear and suspicion toward the unknown. However, Chen Fei couldn't find solace in this change, as the gangrene on his arm showed no signs of subsiding. On the contrary, it appeared to be slowly strengthening over time. Frustratingly, Chen Fei knew that reporting his situation to the rebel soldiers would be futile as he lacked any concrete evidence. A mere alchemist's word would likely be dismissed. Suddenly, a sharp sound rang out, resembling a cracking whip. In the courtyard, the wooden stick that had been hanging and swaying slightly was shattered by Chen Fei's precise arrow. He placed his longbow down, satisfied with his mastery of the origin returning bow technique. The technique did not specify how much he had to mix at once. Chen Fei had a straightforward approach. He mixed 1 noodle at a time, which allowed him to quickly reach the peak of his proficiency. The only drawback was that he had been consuming a lot of noodles lately, and he was getting bored. Regarding the power of the origin returning bow technique, it was rather ordinary. After all, he had only spent 1 tael of silver to simplify it. This highlighted the fundamental nature of the archery technique. In comparison, it was the extreme mountain fist that Chen Fei had learned which truly stood out. Chen Fei felt a great sense of satisfaction. Within just a few days, he had transformed from a complete novice to a skilled archer capable of hitting any target. With such remarkable progress, he had little to complain about. 2 more sets of archery techniques remained for Chen Fei to cultivate. Based on his estimation, he would be able to complete the training in approximately 5 to 6 days. Once that was accomplished, Chen Fei planned to purchase a higher quality longbow, marking the completion of this stage of his cultivation. As night fell, Chen Fei made his way to the black market. This is for today. Chen Fei placed the Qi rejuvenation pill and the light spirit pill on the counter of the stall in the black market. The stall owner inspected the pills briefly before accepting them with a smile. In return, he handed Chen Fei 2 taels of silver and 5 portions of the light spirit pill's medicinal ingredients. Satisfied with the transaction, Chen Fei gathered his belongings and turned to leave. However, his departure was abruptly halted as a group of men dressed in black surrounded him. "Sir, the main family invites you to their family. Would you please come with me?" The glint of moonlight reflected off the blades they held, casting a chilling aura. Maintaining a calm expression, Chen Fei wasn't surprised by this turn of events. He had anticipated trouble in the black market, considering the current circumstances. Being a rogue alchemist had made him a sought-after commodity, and trouble was bound to find him sooner or later. It was easier to just kidnap him and force him to churn pills for them. "It's too late for negotiations. We can settle this another time," Chen Fei calmly stated before swiftly springing into action. In a blink of an eye, he closed the distance between himself and the nearest assailant, launching an attack with his disguised blade. Meanwhile, the leader of the black-clad men had anticipated Chen Fei's resistance. He immediately issued an order, instructing his subordinates to break Chen Fei's leg while avoiding causing harm to his hands. The blades in their hands swiftly came down upon Chen Fei, attempting to execute the leader's command. "Break his leg, don't hurt his hand." The black-clothed man's order echoed through the air, and the blades of his subordinates descended upon Chen Fei. However, a smile spread across Chen Fei's face as he activated the clear heart formula. In that instant, time seemed to pause for him, allowing him to perceive everything with utmost clarity. With a sense of complete control, Chen Fei anticipated the next moves of the 5 men in black. A feeling of mastery welled up within him. Casually flipping his long saber, the force radiating from it caused the 5 attackers to groan in pain. Their weapons slipped from their grasp involuntarily, their hands rendered ineffective. The 5 assailants were filled with terror as they clutched their injured wrists, instinctively stepping back. Suddenly, an intense pain shot through their calves, causing blood to spurt out uncontrollably. "Ah!" they cried out in agony, unable to contain their pain as they all collapsed to the ground. Chen Fei burst into laughter, his victorious expression evident. With a swift leap, he vanished from the scene. Whether these attackers were sent by a specific country or if there were others observing from the periphery, Chen Fei's objective of instilling fear in them had undeniably been accomplished. Chen Fei wanted to make it clear to the other noble families that he was not easily controlled. An alchemist with his level of cultivation could cause a significant backlash if mishandled. It would be in their best interest to collaborate with him. Anticipating such reactions, Chen Fei had purposely refrained from using his sword in order to differentiate himself from his usual identity. He understood that taking risks was often necessary to reap rewards. "You have keen eyesight, but your saber skills are average," Chen Fei remarked calmly to his defeated assailants. Meanwhile, Ling Hanjun observed Chen Fei's movements from a distance and shook his head disapprovingly. "Let's follow him. This person's disguise is exceptional. I can't even discern his true appearance. If we can obtain a portrait, perhaps we can uncover something," Xin Wengxiang suggested. "Agreed," Ling Hanjun nodded. The 2 of them swiftly moved, chasing after Chen Fei. As Chen Fei attempted to lose the pursuers trailing behind him, he suddenly sensed 2 figures approaching at an astonishing speed. His brows furrowed slightly. Just as he was considering using his movement technique to evade them, he caught a clear glimpse of Ling Hanjun's face. To his surprise, both Ling Hanjun and the other man had made no effort to conceal their identities within the black market. Several thoughts raced through Chen Fei's mind. He swiftly dismissed the possibility that his own identity had been compromised. Additionally, the auras emitted by Ling Hanjun and his companion didn't indicate a hostile intent. After a brief moment of hesitation, Chen Fei decided to observe their actions. The crucial factor was that if he intended to continue conducting business in the dark market, it would be impossible to avoid encountering these 2 individuals. Shortly after, Ling Hanjun and Xin Wengxiang caught up to Chen Fei, bringing their request. "Apologies for the interruption. I have a favor to ask," Xin Wengxiang respectfully greeted Chen Fei while Ling Hanjun carefully scrutinized him. Chen Fei's appearance, height, eyes, and face were completely different from the person they had encountered before. Although it was possible for someone to use the disguise technique to alter their features with enough skill, it was a rare ability possessed by few. Moreover, the movement technique Chen Fei had just displayed was markedly distinct from the person they had encountered on the previous occasion. It was more refined and agile and showcased a level of mastery that was unlikely to be achieved by a wandering cultivator in such a short period. Ling Hanjun diverted his gaze and retrieved a portrait from his pocket. Chapter 45, Chapter 45, Space Grid. Chapter 45, Space Grid. Chen Fei remained silent, attentively observing the two individuals before him. Take a look at this portrait and see if you can see anything strange. Xin Wengxiang looked at Chen Fei's vigilant appearance and said with a smile, "We suspect that this person used a disguise technique. Please help us." Maintaining a composed demeanor, Chen Fei donned his deerskin gloves and accepted the portrait. The drawing was well done, and it bore a striking resemblance to his disguised appearance. It was evident that the incident involving Ling Hanjun had left a lasting impression on him. Chen Fei began to scrutinize the portrait, examining it carefully for any telltale signs that could indicate the use of a disguise technique. It's hard to tell if there's anything unusual from a portrait. After carefully examining the portrait, Chen Fei looked up at Ling Hanjun and Xin Wengxiang. His expression revealed his genuine assessment. The portrait, being a processed rendition based on Ling Hanjun's description and drawn by other artists, made it challenging to detect any subtle abnormalities. To truly determine if someone had employed a disguise technique, it would require a first-hand observation, similar to how Xin Wengxiang had easily discerned Chen Fei's altered appearance. "I see. That's unfortunate." Xin Wengxiang exchanged a quick glance with Ling Hanjun. He was aware that relying solely on the portrait would provide limited information, and Ling Hanjun's suspicion of disguise was just that, a suspicion. If it were someone else making this request, Xin Wengxiang would have likely declined and moved on. However, due to his relationship with Ling Hanjun, he felt obliged to fulfill the request, even if it meant periodically monitoring the black market. Having tracked Chen Fei to this point, Xin Wengxiang wanted Ling Hanjun to closely observe Chen Fei and determine if there was any cause for suspicion. That was the main objective. "Friend, may first inquire if you typically wield a saber?" Xin Wengxiang asked, hoping to gather more insight into Chen Fei's activities and background. Ling Hanjun observed the long saber in Chen Fei's possession. The saber technique displayed earlier appeared to be rather ordinary, as expected of a wandering cultivator. "What is it that you wish to inquire about?" Chen Fei responded cautiously, not directly addressing Ling Hanjun's question. Ling Hanjun's gaze remained fixed on Chen Fei as he continued, "It's nothing. I witnessed my friend effortlessly defeat 5 opponents with a single move, and it made me eager for a spar. Would you be interested in exchanging a few moves?" "I wouldn't dare to embarrass myself," Chen Fei replied, evading the proposition and maintaining his guarded stance. Chen Fei shook his head, declining Ling Hanjun's invitation, and took a step back. It was impossible for him to engage in a sparring match. Chen Fei's purpose in wielding the saber was to conceal his true identity. However, he had made sure to acquire a basic saber technique and had honed it to perfection to maintain the facade. "I see. What a pity," Ling Hanjun remarked, noticing Chen Fei's readiness to retreat at any moment. He decided not to press the matter any further. Moments later, Chen Fei's figure disappeared, blending into the surroundings. In order to dispel Ling Hanjun's suspicions, Chen Fei deliberately showcased the agility of his movement technique, ensuring it was on full display. That night, Ling Hanjun had only caught a glimpse of Chen Fei's appearance and witnessed his impressive movement techniques. He hadn't witnessed any sword techniques being used. Given this, Chen Fei realized he had to sever all ties with his past completely. Thanks to the 3 movement technique manuals he had obtained from the Zhang clan, Chen Fei's current lightness skill was completely different from before. He no longer had to worry about being implicated. How did it go? Xin Wengxiang inquired, observing Ling Hanjun's pensive expression. It doesn't seem to be the person we're looking for, Ling Hanjun replied after a moment of contemplation, shaking his head. That's all right. I'll accompany you to visit a few experts in the county. If we still can't find him, it's likely that the person has already left Pingying County, Xin Wengxiang suggested with a smile. Ling Hanjun acknowledged Xin Wengxiang's suggestion with a slight nod, refraining from further discussion. Chen Fei wandered around for a while before eventually returning to his rented courtyard. Deep in thought, he frowned, not expecting Ling Hanjun's persistence in tracking him. Nonetheless, Chen Fei had taken numerous precautions to ensure the smooth sale of his medicinal pills. Back in his room, Chen Fei removed the bag from his back, glancing at the glimmering silver inside. A smile graced his face. 500 taels. It was a substantial amount. At this rate, he estimated that it would only take a few months for the suppressing dragon elephant to amass 50,000 taels. However, Chen Fei knew it was unrealistic for him to remain in Pingying County for that long. Nevertheless, with his alchemy skills, he could swiftly accumulate wealth in other cities as well. Store. With a single thought, the silver on the table vanished, and the balance displayed on the interface skyrocketed to over 5,000 taels of silver. Chen Fei admired his accumulated wealth for a moment, prepared to close the interface panel when he noticed an exclamation mark in the upper right corner of the screen. Curiosity piqued, Chen Fei clicked on the exclamation mark, and a message appeared in his mind. The message revealed the term space grid, leaving Chen Fei momentarily stunned as he processed the information. The interface told Chen Fei that because he had more than 5,000 taels of silver stored, he could now spend 5,000 taels of silver to exchange for a spatial slot. This space was 1 cubic meter in size and could store items. This interface actually has such an ability. After a brief hesitation, Chen Fei decided to proceed with the exchange. Given the current circumstances, there was limited opportunity to spend a large amount of money. Chen Fei was still far from the 50,000 taels required for the simplification of suppressing dragon elephant. Furthermore, the simplifications of other cultivation techniques provided ample earning potential at his current pace. However, the real value of the space grid lies in its ability to store items. If Chen Fei's expectations were met, it would prove to be incredibly convenient and surpass the worth of a mere 5,000 taels. In an instant, the value displayed on the interface plummeted to just a few dozen taels. Simultaneously, Chen Fei felt a spatial layer materialize before his eyes. An expression of excitement spread across Chen Fei's face as he delved into the exploration and study of this newfound spatial grid. After an hour of research, Chen Fei's initial excitement waned, replaced by a slight frown. He rubbed his chin in contemplation. He had discovered that the space slot could indeed store items, but it was limited to just one object at a time. Once he placed the longbow inside, there was no room for the arrow unless he removed the longbow to make space for it. It truly is a space grid. No wonder it only costs 5,000 taels, Chen Fei muttered to himself, scratching his head. While the space provided was 1 cubic meter, the limitation of only accommodating a single item at a time greatly diminished its usefulness. Is it suggesting I save money and continue purchasing more slots? Chen Fei mused aloud, a hint of frustration evident in his voice. Chen Fei paced back and forth in his room, deep in thought about the capabilities of the space grid mentioned in the interface. After a brief moment, he halted his steps and made his way to the kitchen. With the bag of rice before him, Chen Fei focused his mind on it. In an instant, the rice vanished from its original location, reappearing within the spatial grid. A slight change in Chen Fei's expression occurred, his eyes lighting up with joy. He approached the bag, opened it, and revealed the familiar beige grains of rice inside. However, when Chen Fei attempted to mentally manipulate the rice once again, it failed. The entire bag of rice remained stationary. So, it seems that as long as one package it will be considered as a single item. Chen Fei mused, his curiosity piqued by this newfound understanding. Realizing the potential of the space grid, Chen Fei wasted no time. He gathered pots and pans from the kitchen, placing them inside a tightly sealed sack. With a focused thought, the entire sack vanished and reappeared within the spatial grid. This is how it works, Chen Fei exclaimed with a sense of achievement. However, he also recognized the inconvenience of having to retrieve or store the entire bag each time. His mind raced with ideas to address this issue. The following morning, after receiving the medicinal herbs from the Zhao family, Chen Fei set out. The atmosphere in Pingying County had noticeably changed, with a sense of desolation permeating the streets. People hurriedly completed their tasks and hastened home, avoiding lingering on the streets. Moreover, the absence of women caught Chen Fei's attention. Reflecting on the actions of the rebel army, he let out a sigh of disappointment. Chapter 46, Chapter 46, Private Order. Chapter 46, Private Order. Venturing through several winding alleys, Chen Fei arrived at a carpenter's shop. There, he requested a custom-made cabinet with dimensions close to 1 cubic meter. The cabinet was designed to have multiple compartments, each equipped with a drawer or a small door. It can be done, but if you need it by tomorrow, the final product may be a bit rough, the carpenter warned with a smile. That's all right. As long as it meets the other specifications, it's fine, Chen Fei replied, undeterred by the prospect of a rough finish. Very well, then there's no issue, the carpenter agreed, nodding in understanding. Chen Fei left a deposit for the carpenter's services before turning to depart from the shop. Chen Fei remained unsure whether his idea for the wooden cabinet would come to fruition until he could test it out the following day. With a busy schedule ahead, he wanted to return home promptly. Perfecting his archery skills and refining medicinal pills occupied much of his time. However, as he traversed a few alleys, a faint frown appeared on Chen Fei's face. Despite the unease, he continued walking without stopping. Once Chen Fei vanished from sight at the end of the alley, a figure cautiously looked around before quietly following in his footsteps. However, upon turning into the alley, Chen Fei's figure was nowhere to be found. The figure was taken aback and prepared to give chase, but he soon noticed a dark figure emerging behind him. "Why are you following me?" Chen Fei's voice echoed, causing the person's body to freeze. The figure turned around slowly, facing Chen Fei. "Following you? I was just passing by," the figure replied, feigning innocence. Chen Fei remained silent, studying the person in front of him. After a moment's observation, his eyebrows raised slightly. "Dan Xiang, is that you?" Surprised, Dan Xiang asked, "How did you recognize me?" Dan Xiang couldn't help but let slip her surprise, immediately covering her mouth in annoyance. She appeared slightly irritated by her own slip-up. "Why are you looking for me?" Chen Fei asked, his gaze fixed on Dan Xiang. Despite her attempt to disguise herself, her figure remained relatively unchanged. Moreover, the technique used for her disguise was ordinary, allowing Chen Fei to see through it almost instantly. Feeling a twinge of annoyance at her earlier slip-up, Dan Xiang responded in an unhappy tone, "Do you even acknowledge the Zhang family's efforts in nurturing you?" "Cultivate?" Chen Fei repeated, his expression showing a mix of confusion and curiosity. Chen Fei found himself taken aback by Dan Xiang's mention of cultivation. Prior to the destruction of the Zhang family, their relationship had been one of cooperation, even with the denial of the light spirit pill formula. The rewards he had received for his cultivation methods were typically exchanged with merit points. However, there were exceptions. For instance, they had provided daily ingredients for the Qi rejuvenation pill, which Chen Fei would refine. "Did Zhang Xinan send you?" Chen Fei asked, his voice low and filled with suspicion. He had recently gathered some knowledge about the events surrounding the Zhang family's destruction. While most of the direct descendants had perished, it was uncertain if the Zhang family had received any prior notice, allowing certain individuals to escape. Zhang Xinan could have been one of them. Knowing that the Zhao family still harbored intentions to eliminate any remaining direct descendants of the Zhang family, Chen Fei realized that those individuals had likely already left Pingying County. The Zhao family had been unable to find an opportunity to carry out their plans. Miss Zhang is no longer in the county. What are you thinking? Dan Xiang responded, avoiding direct eye contact. Then why did you specifically come looking for me? Chen Fei let out a sigh. Given Dan Xiang's behavior and the fact that he had seen through her disguise, it was clear that something was amiss. Considering the behavior of those associated with Zhang Xinan, it seemed unlikely that this group of people would succeed in their endeavors. Nevertheless, whether they succeeded or not held little significance for Chen Fei, as he had no desire to become involved. There were few items in Zhang Xinan's possession that interested him, and it was unlikely that he would receive the only inner strength cultivation technique from them. We are in need of antidote pills and healing pills, Dan Xiang stated, lifting her head to meet Chen Fei's gaze. You possess the knowledge to refine these two types of medicinal pills. Currently, the Zhao family has given me heavy responsibilities each day, leaving me with little free time, Chen Fei responded, expressing his constraints. Chen Fei pondered for a moment before responding, I can only provide a small quantity of these two medicinal pills. Dan Xiang smiled and replied, that's all one asks for. Chen Fei then inquired, where are the herbs? How do you plan to provide them to me? We don't have any medicinal herbs. Can you figure out a way to gather them? Dan Xiang admitted, causing Chen Fei's eyes to widen in disbelief. He couldn't believe that this group of people expected to receive something for nothing. He had been willing to help with the refinement, but they hadn't even bothered to prepare the necessary medicinal ingredients. With the medicine shop no longer selling medicinal herbs, it appeared that Dan Xiang expected Chen Fei to ask the Zhao family for the required ingredients. Chen Fei couldn't help but feel taken advantage of, as if Zhang Xinan and the others viewed him as a fool. I apologize, but it seems that one cannot assist you with this, Chen Fei stated, bowing slightly before turning to leave. He made the decision not to involve himself with individuals who maintain their arrogant and entitled attitudes. You! How ungrateful! Dan Xiang exclaimed in anger, watching as Chen Fei walked away, her frustration evident in her curse. Chen Fei continued on his way without stopping, allowing a chuckle to escape his lips. As he had anticipated, some people were simply unreasonable and lived in their own delusional world. Upon returning to his courtyard, Chen Fei resumed his routine of refining pills, cultivating, and increasing his proficiency. However, when night fell, he decided against going to the black market. Ling Hanjun's presence had left him unsettled, uncertain of what actions such a person might take. Although suspicion had not yet fallen upon him, Chen Fei believed it was safer to avoid any potential encounters. Fortunately, the lack of black market transactions for a few days did not significantly impact the sale of his pills. The following morning, Chen Fei retrieved the custom-made wooden cabinet from the carpenter's shop. Adding a little extra payment, he arranged for the carpenter to deliver the goods directly to his doorstep. Once the carpenters had left, Chen Fei cautiously opened a few drawers of the wooden cabinet and carefully placed medicine bottles and herbs inside. He made sure to push the drawers back in without leaving any gaps. Nervously, Chen Fei observed the wooden cabinet. Using his mental focus, he guided it, causing the entire cabinet to vanish and reappear within the space grid. It's possible. Chen Fei couldn't help but smile, pleased with the successful outcome of the first step. However, the experiment was not yet complete. The next attempt would be the crucial one. Within the space grid, Chen Fei used his mind to pull out one of the drawers from the wooden cabinet. As a gap appeared, the medicinal herbs stored inside the drawer disappeared and reappeared in Chen Fei's hand. Excellent! Chen Fei exclaimed, his excitement evident. Filled with joy, Chen Fei experienced genuine happiness. The expected functionality of the spatial grid had been fully realized, bringing him a sense of accomplishment. Through the gap created by the open drawer, Chen Fei could see that there were other items within the spatial grid. With this confirmation, he made the decision to exit the spatial grid. Though it may sound complex, all it took was a simple thought. However, Chen Fei quickly realized that he couldn't send the herbs back into the spatial grid individually. Instead, he had to summon the entire cabinet, enabling him to place the herbs back inside. Although it was not yet a fully versatile storage space, Chen Fei was still satisfied with the functionality he had achieved. With his design, the space grid could already store a considerable amount of items. Chen Fei summoned the wooden cabinet and carefully arranged various items in the drawers according to his predetermined plan. He even allocated a relatively large space within the cabinet specifically for storing the bow and arrows. I no longer have to worry about running out of storage space for my pills, Chen Fei remarked with a sense of relief. Half an hour later, the Zhao family arrived. Zhao Xia delivered the news that Elder Zeng was seriously injured and would be unable to refine the light spirit pill for a while. As a result, the pill assignment given to Chen Fei would carry even greater importance. Zhao Xia then offered in a low voice, "If you have any requests, please let me know. I can report them back to the family." Chapter 47, Setting an Example. Chapter 47, Setting an Example. Chen Fei expressed his disbelief. How could Elder Zeng have been seriously injured? Zhao Xia responded, frustration evident in his voice. A group of individuals forcibly entered Elder Zeng's residence. Despite the presence of guards, they managed to harm Elder Zeng in the end. Zhao Xia clenched his fists, expressing his anger and determination to find the culprits. The Zhao family was intensifying their investigation, and if they discovered any leads, they would undoubtedly seek revenge. Chen Fei remained silent, thoughts of Zhang Xinan and the others crossing his mind. Chen Fei was taken aback by the severity of Zheng Difang's injuries. He hadn't anticipated that those individuals would go so far as to harm him. The news that they intended to kill him was even more disturbing. Various thoughts raced through Chen Fei's mind. Was this a case of using extreme measures to intimidate others by setting an example, or was there no limit to their actions? Perhaps their goal was to hinder the Zhao family's production of medicinal pills and disrupt their mission, leading to blame being placed on the rebel army. I've heard that the residence possesses the remnants of the eternal floating pill recipe. Would it be possible for me to take a look at it? Chen Fei inquired, his curiosity piqued. Chen Fei understood the limitations of making requests to the Zhao family. Although they had increased their workloads and said that they could make requests, he knew that asking for a significant favor would likely be met with resistance. Even obtaining an inner strength cultivation technique or the complete pill formula for the light-hearted spirit pill was out of the question. The Zhao family was reluctant to share valuable resources, fearing they might go to waste. However, Chen Fei saw potential value in the incomplete recipe of the eternal floating pill. Though he couldn't discern much from it currently, he believed it held some significance. Zhao Xia appeared slightly taken aback by Chen Fei's request, but he agreed nonetheless. He assured Chen Fei that he would report it to Pill Master Chen and emphasize the importance of Chen Fei's safety. Additionally, 2 guards would be assigned to protect him. In 2 days' time, the Zhao family would rent a courtyard and arrange accommodations for all the pill refiners. Most of the pill refiners who knew how to refine the light spirit pill were arranged to enter Zhao's residence. Since they all had families, the Zhao residence quickly became filled to capacity. However, there were a few who were unwilling to be confined. In response, the Zhao family assigned individuals to protect them. They had already organized people to attack, such as Zheng Difang, but the assailants possessed formidable strength that proved insurmountable. "Thank you." Chen Fei expressed his gratitude, cupping his hands as Zhao Xia departed. The two guards from the Zhao family accompanied Chen Fei back to the courtyard. He had arranged a room for them, and they would typically stay in the courtyard to serve as guards. The presence of the guards outside slightly hindered Chen Fei's movements. If he were to move into the Zhao residence later, this influence would become even more pronounced. Luckily, Chen Fei was planning to depart from Pingying County soon, so this impact would only last for a few more days. Chen Fei cast a glance at the mark on his wrist, noting that the gangrene's activity was intensifying. Feeling a sense of urgency, he made up his mind to seize an opportunity in the upcoming days to inquire with Qi Defeng about the team's departure schedule. The feeling of being pressed for time was tormenting him. The fragrant aroma of medicine wafted through the pill room as Chen Fei finished refining a few batches of pills. Just as he was in the midst of his work, Zhao Xia returned and handed him a pill formula. Simultaneously, he provided him with the necessary additional herbs for the day. Chen Fei examined the remaining recipe in his hand, pleasantly surprised by the Zhao family's efficiency. They had promised to provide it to him, and they did so promptly. Curiosity sparked within him as he contemplated the potential benefits he would gain from simplifying the formula. After an entire morning dedicated to refining medicinal pills, Chen Fei decided to pause. He had successfully processed all the required medicinal herbs. Chen Fei carefully placed the medicinal pills designated for submission into one drawer of the wooden cabinet while storing the remaining pills in another drawer. He then stowed the wooden cabinet inside his space grid. The thought of the items filling the wooden cabinet brought a smile to Chen Fei's face. Initially, he had believed that he wouldn't be able to carry many belongings when leaving Pingying County. However, with the addition of the space grid, Chen Fei could now bring various medicinal pills and herbs with him. This newfound capability gave him a sense of reassurance, knowing that he had the means to address unforeseen situations in the wilderness. Unbeknownst to him, this arrangement would ensure Chen Fei's safety during his ventures in the wild. As night descended, he spent his time cultivating his inner strength and practicing his martial arts techniques. Chen Fei's concentration on archery techniques in the pill room was abruptly disrupted by faint sounds emanating from outside the door. His expression shifted, and he swiftly exited the room, clutching his long sword. In the courtyard, a black figure stood while the two Zhao family guards lay lifeless beside them, blood streaming from their necks. Observing the scene, it was evident that the guards had met their demise. Zhang Xianping, perched above, fixed his gaze on Chen Fei. "You must be Chen Fei," he remarked. Curiosity mingled with suspicion. Chen Fei furrowed his brow. "Who are you? Did Zhang Xinan send you?" A sinister smile crept across Zhang Xianping's face. "You're quite astute. However, you failed to appreciate the opportunity one granted you." Zhang Xianping brandished the dagger in his hand, still stained with traces of blood, and advanced toward Chen Fei with deliberate steps. Witnessing Zhang Xianping's admission of guilt, Chen Fei couldn't help but feel a sense of frustration. Merely because he had refused to comply with Zhang Xinan's demands, the latter had resorted to killing, starting with the people from the medical center. The Zhao family members were still alive for now, but the medical center staff had fallen victim first. If he chose not to help, would he meet the same fate? On the other hand, if the Zhao family discovered his assistance, he would face dire consequences. Survival in this world was indeed an arduous task. "Now you understand fear." Zhang Xianping jeered, his laughter filled with madness. "Don't worry, you'll be the fourth. There will be others who shall join you." In the next instant, Zhang Xianping abruptly materialized in front of Chen Fei, launching a ferocious slash aimed at his neck. A muffled clash resounded as Chen Fei's long sword successfully intercepted Zhang Xianping's dagger. Zhang Xianping's eyebrows shot up in surprise. Wasn't Chen Fei merely an ordinary martial artist in the skin-toughening realm? How could he block his attack? Just as Zhang Xianping contemplated changing his tactics, a sense of alarm surged within him. A white light materialized before his eyes. Ding! The tip of Chen Fei's long sword made contact with the dagger, sending a shiver of fear down Zhang Xianping's spine. Had it not been for his exceptional teacher and his accomplished movement technique, he would have been unable to dodge that sword strike just moments ago. Zhang Xianping stared at Chen Fei, a lingering fear in his eyes. How could a rogue cultivator possess such a remarkable sword technique? Even in Pingying County, there shouldn't be such a lineage of sword technique inheritance. Recognizing the formidable nature of his opponent, Zhang Xianping swiftly planted his right foot on the ground and propelled himself backward, akin to a floating willow catkin. In response, Chen Fei's sword technique underwent a sudden transformation. Flames seemed to burst forth as his swordsmanship enveloped Zhang Xianping entirely. With his movement technique neutralized, Zhang Xianping had no choice but to defend against the imminent attack. After a brief moment, he breathed a sigh of relief. While this sword technique was extraordinary, it remained within the realm of what he could handle. Now, he only needed to remain vigilant against the previous aerial sword strike, and he believed he would be safe. In the blink of an eye, the two of them exchanged dozens of moves, allowing Chen Fei to gain a more comprehensive understanding of his current strength. Immortal Wei undeniably possessed immense killing power, but against a true expert of the bone-tempering realm, a failed sneak attack would leave one vulnerable and easily countered. With only one move at their disposal, without any follow-up, it was all too easy to end up in the same situation as Zhang Xianping blocking a single sword strike. Although the fire sword was also remarkable, its effectiveness was limited by Chen Fei's current cultivation realm, making it challenging for him to deliver a fatal blow. Observing Zhang Xianping, who was on the verge of escaping, Chen Fei chose to cease his pursuit. Instead, he employed the clear heart formula, preparing for the three immortal swords technique. Zhang Xianping, who had been dealing with the situation effortlessly, suddenly noticed the disappearance of the surrounding sword energy. In the next moment, he caught sight of a white light hurtling toward him. "I've been waiting for this very move of yours," Chen Fei declared. Believing that Chen Fei was reaching his limits, Zhang Xianping shouted and hastily blocked the incoming sword with his dagger. If he could successfully parry the strike, Zhang Xianping intended to utilize the force of the collision to make his escape. Furthermore, having witnessed Chen Fei's previous three moves, he even began to entertain the notion that if he continued to stall, victory would be within his grasp. In the next instant, the white light vanished, leaving Chen Fei standing in place. Zhang Xianping, holding his dagger, gazed at Chen Fei in bewilderment. Suddenly, his body staggered backward. Without warning, a massive hole appeared in his chest. His dagger had failed to block Chen Fei's sword. "Excellent swordsmanship," Zhang Xianping murmured softly as he looked at Chen Fei. Then, in the blink of an eye, he collapsed to the ground. The soil beneath him quickly became saturated with his blood. Chapter 48, Chapter 48, Flash. Chapter 48, Flash. I originally believed that the three immortal swords would be sufficient to handle the marrow-tempering realm. It appears that my optimism was misplaced, Chen Fei muttered to himself. Without actual combat, relying solely on judgment would lead to significant deviations in many aspects. The difference in battle prowess between Jian Liang and Zhang Xianping, both in the bone-tempering realm, was astonishing. One should never underestimate their enemy, as it might result in their demise, rendering them incapable of seeing the future. Chen Fei surveyed the chaotic courtyard and the lifeless bodies strewn across the ground. His plans had been disrupted to some extent. He pondered how to explain the situation when the Zhao family arrived tomorrow. Could he simply state that the three individuals in front of him had perished together? It would be difficult to believe, given the clean wounds on the guards' necks, indicating they were swiftly overpowered and killed. Clearly, the guards were unable to put up any resistance and were promptly slain. "It seems that one can no longer rely on my current identity," Chen Fei sighed softly as he proceeded to handle the corpses of the three individuals. He disposed of them in other abandoned courtyards where no one would stumble upon them. Although Zhang Xianping possessed some silver, he did not have the coveted secret manual that Chen Fei had anticipated. Zhang Xianping's inheritance appeared to be remarkable, but unfortunately, he never granted Chen Fei the opportunity to learn his cultivation technique. Returning to his room, Chen Fei packed all the essential items into a wooden cabinet, which he then stored within the space grid. He then altered his appearance and made his way to the black market. "I was just about to seek you out. 3 days from now, let's meet at the wind-moving stone," he announced. At the stall, Qi Defeng spotted Chen Fei's arrival and quickly pulled him into the nearby house, speaking in a low voice. "Excellent." Chen Fei couldn't help but smile as he received the anticipated information without even having to ask for it. However, this meant that he would finally be departing from Pingying County. Chen Fei had set a limit of 7 days. If there was no news of his departure within that time frame, he would have to leave on his own. Previously, he didn't dare to do so, but now that he possessed a space grid, he could carry numerous items, which bolstered Chen Fei's confidence. Naturally, the most crucial factor was the lingering threat that hung over him like gangrene. Sensing that danger was approaching, Chen Fei knew he had to distance himself as far as possible. "Remember, 3 days from now." As Chen Fei prepared to depart, Qi Defeng reminded him once again. Chen Fei waved his hand dismissively and stepped out of the house. Navigating through a few shadowy areas in the black market and altering his appearance, Chen Fei arrived at the stall that purchased medicinal pills. "You've arrived." The stall owner's face lit up with joy upon seeing Chen Fei. His absence for the past 2 days had caused the stall owner great distress, unable to sleep or eat peacefully. The supply had been disrupted, and the stall owner had been frustrated with those attempting to test the situation. Fortunately, Chen Fei had finally appeared, bringing immense relief to the stall owner. Chen Fei nodded and retrieved the pills from his bag. After 15 minutes, the transaction between the two parties concluded, leaving Chen Fei with an additional 1,000 taels of silver in his possession. However, if he recharged the interface, he wouldn't be able to withdraw the silver, and he would still need it in 3 days' time. Not lingering in the dark city for long, Chen Fei turned around and departed. Yet, as soon as he stepped out of the shop, he sensed a lurking presence, as if he was being followed and monitored. Furrowing his brow, Chen Fei realized that this wasn't just a casual tale. The hostility emanating from the pursuer was strong, carrying even a hint of killing intent. He stole a glance and spotted someone observing him. Chen Fei's mind involuntarily recalled the seemingly casual words of the stall owner back in the house, stirring a sense of unease within him. Silently, Chen Fei leisurely wandered through the black market, strategically maneuvering through different paths. By the time he re-emerged, his appearance and clothing had undergone a complete transformation. The surveilling gazes that had been fixated on him disappeared entirely. Chen Fei continued to stroll through the black market for a couple more rounds before finally deciding to depart. As he distanced himself several hundred meters away from his previous location, a conversation unfolded between two individuals. "Big brother, we lost him." "Idiots. Didn't I warn you to be cautious?" Ling Hanjun angrily kicked the individual to the ground. In the black market, anyone suspected by Ling Hanjun would be detained without hesitation. This had been their approach for the past few days. Although the chances of executing someone today were low, given the suspect's unique movement techniques and exceptional disguise skills, Ling Hanjun would rather make a mistake by killing the wrong person than let them escape. Today, when the suspect finally appeared to sell pills, Ling Hanjun's subordinates had lost track of him, which infuriated him. The profits from selling pills are substantial. One refused to believe that he won't show up forever. Ling Hanjun's eyes gleamed with coldness. In his pursuit of finding that person, he didn't care if others were falsely accused or wronged along the way. Perched upon a vantage point, Chen Fei observed Ling Hanjun's army from a distance. Having honed his archery skills, Chen Fei's eyesight had significantly improved. Even in the darkness of the night, he could clearly discern the scene unfolding in the distance. Without missing a beat, a longbow materialized in Chen Fei's grasp. How could he remain unresponsive when he was nearly ambushed? He pulled the bowstring taut, readying himself for action. In the blink of an eye, the arrow soared through the sky, finding its mark in the chest of one of the rebel soldiers and archer. Enemy attack! Amidst the cry of alarm, the individuals surrounding Ling Hanjun swiftly heightened their vigilance. The suddenness of the attack had left many unable to discern the origin of the bow and arrow. Ah! Another agonized scream resounded as another individual fell victim to Chen Fei's precise aim. This time, it was one of the archers. Ling Hanjun had now lost both of their skilled archers. There! Charge! Ling Hanjun swiftly turned his head, vanishing from his previous position as he lunged toward Chen Fei. The remaining rebels hesitated no further and followed suit, charging toward the high ground. With an impassive expression, Chen Fei continued to unleash arrows upon them, completely disregarding Ling Hanjun. All! Another cry of pain pierced the air as Chen Fei's arrows found their marks. Screams echoed continuously, and Ling Hanjun's forehead veins pulsated. Before they could even reach their target, over half of his men had already perished. These were once his loyal subordinates who had joined the rebel army alongside him. If they all died, Ling Hanjun would no longer have the same level of control and obedience he currently enjoyed. Stop! Ling Hanjun bellowed in fury as he relentlessly charged toward Chen Fei. Mechanically, Chen Fei drew his bow and released arrows without pause. His quiver emptied, but a fresh supply of arrows materialized instantaneously. Chen Fei's hands moved ceaselessly, never faltering in their rhythm. The rebel soldiers halted their advance and formed protective formations, minimizing the effectiveness of Chen Fei's arrows. While they still posed some danger, they were no longer able to achieve the same lethal impact as before. Chen Fei's gaze shifted toward the approaching Ling Hanjun, and he swiftly released an arrow toward him. However, Ling Hanjun deflected the arrow effortlessly with his blade. The strength of the arrow posed little threat to him, yet it did cause him to momentarily slow down. Unfazed by whether he could harm Ling Hanjun directly, Chen Fei continued to shoot arrows at the others. The principles and techniques of archery swirled within his mind, gradually diminishing the speed and efficiency of Ling Hanjun's men. After around a dozen breaths, the arrows in Chen Fei's quiver were finally depleted. Ling Hanjun's face twisted into a sinister smile as he prepared to launch himself at Chen Fei. However, his expression abruptly changed when he saw a smile grace Chen Fei's face. In a flicker, Chen Fei vanished from his original position. Like a flash of lightning and the serene light of a river and sea, Chen Fei's speed was astonishing. Under Ling Hanjun's astonished gaze, Chen Fei disappeared at an incredible pace. The movement technique was so swift that Ling Hanjun had no desire to give chase. Even with the aid of newfound secret techniques and medicinal pills, he knew he couldn't catch up. It was an overwhelming display of dominance. Part 3 of the series ends here. If you enjoyed it, please give us a like and subscribe so we can be motivated to make even better videos in the future.